Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Bikes for Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I am your host. And on today's episode, I am really excited to bring you a conversation with Cjell Moné, a man that I'm sure needs no introduction, but we'll give him a quick one anyway. Cjell just set a world record on the Arizona Trail 800, which is actually 840 miles. What makes his ride special and a world record is that he rode the entire 840 miles on a custom La Roca coaster brake bike. And if you don't remember what coaster brakes are, we're going to talk about that in today's episode. But if you know anything about the Arizona Trail, it is super gnarly, which makes his ride absolutely incredible and impressive, and certainly world record worthy. Try saying that 10 times fast. Cjell is also the owner, founder, and artist behind Moné Bikes, where he makes some of the sexiest looking bikes on the market. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking all about his Arizona Trail world record. And we're going to, of course, talk about the bikes that he's building over at Moné Bikes. But before we get into today's episode, let's take a moment to thank the people that made it possible, starting with our patrons, if we had any this week, but we don't, and that's okay. But if you would like to support these episodes, a great way to do that is over on Patreon. To learn more, go to patreon.com/bikesfordeath. And today's episode is also brought to us by my friends over at the Farther Bag Co. Whether you're strapping a bag to your bike for a weekend adventure or packing up for your daily commute, Farther Bag Co. has you covered. Their handmade small batch bags are built for adventure, made from water-resistant recycled materials, and come with a lifetime repair guarantee. Farther's bags have been featured on The Radavist, bikepacking.com, and Bike Gear Database, and much more. Their Psychic Medium handlebar bag is the perfect size for day trips, commuting, and everyday rides. And it's designed to live on your handlebars, so it's always ready for the journey ahead. To get 15% off your order, use code BAGSORDEATH at fartherbag.com. And like they say, go farther, let the good times roll. Again, to save 15% on your order, use code BAGSORDEATH at checkout when you visit fartherbag.com. Now, today's episode is also brought to us by the Central Texas Showdown, which is a race that I put on here in the Texas Hill Country. The dates for this year are October 23rd through the 26th. We have competitive and non-competitive options and 4 different route options in total to choose from 88 miles all the way up to 500 miles. There's something for everybody, and it is a hell of a good time, if I may say so myself. If you'd like to learn more, you can find out more over at our website, TexasShowdownSeries.com. You'll find a link to registration there, and of course, I'll include it in the show notes. And for being a loyal listener, if you would like to take $20 off your registration, just use the code BikesOrDeath at checkout, and we will see you in the Texas Hill Country. All right, that is it. Ching, 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 ching. The bills have been paid, and now it is time to get to my chat with the one, the only Cjell Moné. But first, let's have my friend Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes for Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
All right. Anything else?
No, we're house kept. We're kept.
We're house kept. All of our to-do lists have been checked, and now it is time to welcome Cjell Moné to the Bikes for Death podcast. Man, welcome back.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
It's been 4 years since the last one, June of 2021.
Right.
It's been a while since we chat, man. So it's man, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to be back on, and yeah, good to see you too.
So fresh off a new world record on the Arizona Trail, riding the Arizona Trail, still called the 800, but it's 840 miles now, right? And doing it on a coaster bike.
Yeah. I say that if you can't beat the geared riders, you got to ride a single speed, and if you can't beat the single speeders, well, it's a coaster bike.
Smart. Well, it's a world record, right? So it still counts.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah. I think if my math is correct, you finished like 8 days ago. So I'm curious how you're feeling. How did the body hold up and everything?
I feel pretty good. My junk food consumption is slowly going down, but I have like a massive appetite for terrible food. Other than that, I have to give a lot of respect and credit to people who are actually really hustling and riding a lot of night miles. I just talked to Alexander and Johnny and Justin Dubois and a lot of those characters, and they're riding a lot of night miles, and they're really pushing it. And that really didn't end up to be what my ride was about. And so as I sit here basking in my new world record, I have to really give credit to the folks that are really going hard out there, because it is a different level when you start digging into your sleep supply and really doing that. It's a different game, and that's not where I was on this ride. I actually got a ride from Justin to the start. I kind of gave him a phone call. He's in Cochise. He has a little desert spot down there. And I gave him a phone call. I said, "Hey, I'm going to start the AZT." And he goes, "Oh, I'll give you a ride to the start." And it really ended up to be so perfect. I got a ride to like kind of Dragoons off the interstate. I rode a couple hours to his spot, and then he brought me to the start. And in that time, we're talking strategy, we're talking this and that. And he kind of had me pumped up to go fast. He really was like, I was like, yeah, maybe, 12, 13, 14 days, something. And he was like, no, you'll be good. You can go fast. And so he's kind of pumping me up. And day one, it turned on its head. I just full cramping, just huge shock of really, riding that 16-hour day just really shocked me. And I kind of shifted. I said, I want to finish this thing. I really want to see the trail in its entirety. I want to do all the riding. I want to see all the updates. I need to shift from what I thought was kind of race pace to something more feasible, which ended up to be, I would call it Sport Plus. You're riding dawn till dusk, but taking the time that you need. So really sleeping when I needed to. I zeroed in Flagstaff. I hit a huge patch of mud, and I zeroed up there. So that there's just a
when
number
you say
of times
zero, what does that mean?
0 miles in a day.
Zeroed. Yeah. Took a rest day.
Yeah. So that was the theme of the trip, was just like, get over yourself and finish. And I was very grateful to have accomplished that. I got to see all the updates and got to be out there for 2 weeks. And it's amazing. The Arizona Trail is like nothing else. And now I've seen the updates, and I've seen the harder version, and it's hard.
It's hard. And for sure. I mean, that's going to be like the main kind of the meat and potatoes of today's conversation. And I want to dig into all of that. But it would be silly for me to have Cjell Moné on the podcast and not talk about bikes for a little bit. That's a pun for your podcast, but also the fact that you own and operate a bike company called Moné Bikes. And I noticed that you had like a post on Instagram when you finished AZT, and just like 2 days later, you were posting, stuff for your bike shop. And so just for anyone who's not familiar with Money bikes or Moné bikes or however you want to pronounce it, both are
Both
correct.
either.
Yeah. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And I remember from our last episode, pick one and be indignant about it, I believe is what you said.
That's right. You just got to correct people. You know,
Yeah.
you met him, you know it. It's actually Money Bikes. He said it once.
Yeah. No, I heard it out of his mouth.
True.
Yeah. Unless the opposite is true. So what is Money Bikes for anyone who might be unfamiliar?
I guess at our core, kind of a frame building operation, make off-road touring frames, bikes, trail, hardtails, drop bar, off-road, gravel bikes, kind of stuff targeted at maybe more the bikepacking lifestyle side of cycling. And we want them to work really good. I've always, built bikes to perform well. I ride a lot of bikes, and I know a lot of our customers are big time bike riders. And so first and foremost, high performance, really nicely made steel bikes. And then we want them to look cool. So they're all hand brazed. So brass joined, and a lot of them are clear coated, so you can kind of see the work. And then we do a lot of other stuff. Like handlebars are a big part of the business. We do a lot of like kind of motorcycle style, slightly riser style handlebars, different models of that. And then little brass accessories. We do spoke nipples, seat clamps, bar ends, top caps. So a lot of like machined brass accessories. And then coaster brakes.
I was going to say coaster brakes. Yeah.
Yeah. Coaster brakes is the worst part of our business as far as business goes, but one of the most fun parts. So after I exchange 50 emails with a customer, we can figure out exactly what they need. We build them custom hubs, so hubs to fit whatever application you want to be a coaster brake, or then we build wheels or wheel sets. So any kind of combination, if you want to build your own wheel, or you want us to build a wheel, or you want us to build a coaster brake bike, all the above. And then just for a broader audience, coaster brakes are like a child's bike. So when you pedal backwards, you brake, and it is not a fixed gear. You can coast, but then when you pedal backwards, you get the brake, and when you pedal forwards, you go forwards. Hopefully,
yeah. I'm glad you explained that, because I was going to ask, just in case there's anyone who didn't know or didn't remember what a coaster brake was. So Money Bikes, it's you and your partner. Do you have any other employees?
Erica is involved. She actually still builds all the coaster brakes, like the hubs specifically. She kind of has that expertise. I have another guy, Joe, here in town. He's one of my favorite people, very much on the spectrum, super high attention to detail. He actually taught Erica how to build wheels. So Erica's her own person. She's a little less obsessive than I am. So the passion for bikes doesn't burn deep within her. But she rides them all the time, and she is an accomplished mechanic, much better than myself. But she can't tell you about the new cable-driven GX transmission. She doesn't give a shit about that stuff. And I always say she's a little cooler than I am in that regard. But since she's kind of stepped back, this guy, Joe, has stepped in to build. I think last year we built over 100 wheels. I order spokes and kind of get everything together and what we need to build. And then Joe knocks them out, and he's high on the obsession scale. I really need to make a post about how he operates, because you go over and everything is like hyper neat. He's kind of a freak in that regard. He's definitely the guy you want building your wheels. And he just does a fantastic job. I have a little show and tell. He polished. So we have raw brass spoke nibbles. Oh, yeah. And he polished them a set. And I said, I'm not going to necessarily like sell these things readily, because it's so much work for Joe, like hand polishing.
My goodness,
nipples is ridiculous. But he wanted to see how they corroded over time. So he made this little like walnut kind of display. And he goes, "Why don't you just put that on your desk and keep an eye on how the finish is going over time?" So that's the kind of guy he is.
In
So
10 years,
that's
we'll do another podcast, and I want an
yeah,
update
yeah.
on that
Ask about
nipple.
the polished nipples.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm already making show notes for the next one. Good.
But yeah, so Joe, it's really fun to work with him, and it's been really kind of a fun relationship, and to be able to, I pay Joe really well to build these wheels, and then he turns around and does a great job. So that's been an awesome relationship. And then the other part would be Carl, buddy over in Phoenix, and he handles all the custom finish work. So anything that is not finish, we have a medium size, maybe 50% of our stuff comes out of a little shop in Taiwan. And they do a lot of the finish there, but all the hand built stuff, a lot of the custom stuff coming from my shop needs finish work, as in like running a brush, putting down the logos, doing all the etching, and then getting them powder coated. And that is better suited to Phoenix, where they have industrial powder coaters. And so Carl is my guy coordinating and doing all the brush work and all the finish work over there. So all the Turbo Midnight, that's all kind of the darker etch finish, and all of the powder coating all kind of goes through Phoenix and goes through Carl. So I have to give him a lot of credit for doing the part of the job that I don't like doing, is obviously running that brush. And then he's been a finish carpenter for a lot of his life, and so he has a high attention to detail. So I can always trust that stuff that comes out of there is always dialed in. So that's the operation, and then it's just me grinding.
Yeah, just doing everything else, sweeping the floors, designing the bikes, yeah. Are you still operating out of the Wonder Bread truck?
Yes. Yeah. That's, I think we're 4 or 5 years ago, we bought a little property here in Silver City. It's 2-acre junkyard. So it had 20 some cars, 17 shed structures, 4 semi trailers. Here, I can give you a little peek here.
All right. Yeah. Let's go on like MTV or BOD Cribs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's like an old Chevy there that came with the spot.
Hell yeah.
And then, this is actually like, it's just this tiny taste of what's going on here, but it's just like, I want to say never ending project, but it's been a huge project. But we paid sub $50,000 cash for this junkyard. So we bought ourselves a lifestyle for a while, but it's ours, and that feels good. And so I parked the bread truck here, and it really functions as a shop really well. In the future, there are some spaces here that might work as a shop, but honestly, the bread truck has been so optimal for me and working and making stuff. So that's the little shop. And that's what's happening here, I guess. And then I just have a little room here with some inventory, putting together a few completes, and then just packing and shipping is kind of what the chaos behind me is. So
it's crazy what you're able to produce. If you go to your website, like it's pretty overwhelming with, all the different there's so many different bikes and components. It's really impressive what you're able to produce with such a small team. How long have y'all been at this now?
I apprenticed with Black Sheep Bikes. I think I'm going to throw out a number, but I think it's been like 15 to 16 years ago. Maybe 2010, I apprenticed with James at Black Sheep Bikes in Fort Collins. And that was kind of my start. Maybe we were incorporated in like 2012 or 13, something like that. That's about the timeline. So we're looking at 12, 13 years of business. I've been in Silver City 7 years, something like that. So that's kind of the time when I stopped waiting tables and moved down to Silver City and really went full time just doing this.
One of the things, I feel like this is a big question, but I'm curious, like, before you build a bike, like what goes into or helps you inform the decision all the way from like design to function and the aesthetics of your bike? Like what requirements in your mind like have to be met before you're like, okay, we want this bike in our lineup?
It's a good question. Um, well, I want them to, meet the needs of customers for sure. First and foremost, I would be customer zero. I'm like building bikes that I want to ride. And so that's kind of like the first thing. I get like, for example, 3-4 years ago, we came out with a bike called the Peblito, and that
Yeah.
was a gravel bike. And I am from the Midwest, but I don't have a huge connection with like the gravel scene necessarily. But I kind of started riding a little bit more road and then some gravel, and put together a bike, and then thought, you know what, I kind of like, I'm digging the efficiency, the speed. I really was liking my gravel bike, and I thought, this would be a cool area to branch into. So again, me as like the first person, like, yep, I think I want a gravel bike, and then seeing that, like, yeah, I have a lot of bike people, and those things are pretty rad. Like the efficiency of a gravel bike, how fast that bike can be, and so that's the kind of the design back and forth is like, yeah, I think it would be rad to make one of those, and then just kind of seeing what's in the market and seeing where we can plug in, and how our product is going to be excel, do well, be different, stand out. A lot of my design, I'm empathetic to the home mechanic or the person building a bike. So it's easy for you to make one decision and say, okay, this bike has post mount brakes, done. But then it's like, well, what if you had flat mount? What if the gravel kit that you buy, which is most of them, are flat mount? Okay, so man, I would really like them to fit both. So that's kind of a consideration that I look at a lot of times, is like, how can I make the frame clean, look good, perform well, and then be very compatible? And
Yeah.
that has definitely become an emphasis for me. That's like a nod to Surly. They've been in that game for a long time, like all the mounts, all the things, and they Surly goes a little maybe overboard, and like they have the zits everywhere on the fork, and they're going to fit every single thing, where I'm drawing a line at something that looks really good but also has that compatibility.
Yeah.
And that journey for me, definitely, I've always kind of had that thought designing bikes, but on the Peblito, I came out and I said, okay, one consideration is basically gravel bikes are like mountain bikes, but a little skinnier in every way. So the hub spacing is non-boost. So that means you have a 100 millimeter front hub and 142 millimeter rear. So that's like basically non-boost, which was mountain bikes before we got boost spacing to fit bigger tires, to kind of push the drivetrain outboard and fit all this stuff. So I'm thinking, oh yeah, non-boost, that was a cool era. Non-boost is a 15 millimeter front axle and a 12 millimeter rear. So then on the front axle, the question is, now gravel has gone to 12 millimeter, but if you make a 12 millimeter fork, you can't fit a 15 millimeter axle. But the opposite is not necessarily true. You can run a little adapter to make a 15 mil run a 12 mil. This is a long way of saying I really scrutinize every decision to say, okay, I want 15 millimeter old non-boost wheels to work. I also want modern gravel wheels to work. I'm going to go with a 15 millimeter and offer a little adapter kit.
Yeah.
Another example on that bike would be like dropper routing or front derailleur. So a lot of these race bikes, a lot of the like OG roadies, a lot of people in general really want that 2x drivetrain. And they say, I'm not about whatever range you can tell me the 1x has. I want my 2x. So that's a front derailleur mount, and then whatever combination. So that's kind of on the road side of gravel, you have like a 2x drivetrain. But then on the mountain side of gravel, you would have a dropper post, right? And so that's kind of like, what is your left shifter going to be doing? Maybe somebody has run a 2x with a dropper. That'd be kind of a rare combo. But the Peblito does both of them. So it has a little internal dropper routing port and also a front derailleur mount. So it's kind of like just making little choices so they're compatible to the end builder. Someone at home bought the frame and says, actually, I want to run this. I want to run this. I have a 27.2 seat post, which is a little atypical in some of the modern gravel stuff, but that fits a lot of the old school posts, and then it will fit dropper posts. So I had to kind of like stray a little bit from the standard Columbus tube set to make sure I got a 27.2 dropper. I have a front derailleur. I have dropper routing, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point is all of that kind of came together, and I got the frames and I built one up, loved it. It was really great. And I started thinking, this has been a really cool exercise to make sure I have post mount, flat mount, dropper, front derailleur. You're just kind of going through all these decisions to make sure you have compatibility. But at the end of the day, these new frames kind of fit only new or newer parts. So as soon as you make a bike through axle, there's all the old hubs are out.
Yeah.
Through axle is going to necessarily dictate disc brake in almost every situation. So these bikes are disc and through axle. That means we're talking about modern or modern-ish parts. And so then it got me thinking, like, what if it was a blank sheet and back compatibility was the name of the game? So it wasn't just like making every decision to make a modern bike relatively compatible. It was like no through axle, nothing. I want it to be all the old parts. So, quick release bolt-on style hubs from the day. And then I want it to be single speed capable. I want it to be 650B or 700C. I want rim brakes, blah, blah, blah. That's all the new bike. It's called the Hachita. And that was kind of quite an engineering and design exercise to get crazy compatibility. So you could have different wheel sizes, different brake styles, because as soon as you stick candy posts on a frame, that tells you exactly what style. So cantilever brakes, because there's another style called high pivot or U brakes or anything that has a higher pivot. So you stick those on the bike and it describes the style of brake. It's also going to describe the size of wheel. So as soon as you put them there, it's like, this is a cantilever bike and it will only fit 700Cs, because if I put a smaller wheel in, then I all of a sudden my brake pads don't line up anymore. So that's kind of the trickery with it, is I have these little plates that slide up and that have a few different positions to be 700C, 650B, or even 26. So they fit all three wheel sizes in this cantilever style brake. Or you can take these plates and flip them and move them up, and now these posts sit in a high pivot position. So you have 700C, 650, or 26 in a high pivot brake position. So it's like two styles of brakes, three sizes of wheels. And then after that, I wanted disc compatibility, because there's a period of time when people had quick release disc brakes. It's also a bit of a throwback. So that means I need to make the frame reinforced
brakes. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And that's kind of an ishy period when we didn't have through axles, but we were getting disc brakes.
Yeah.
But that stuff is still in people's sheds, and that is kind of a cool and capable build. So that you have to kind of change your front dropout so the discs don't pull the wheel out of the dropout, because that's where through axles come in. They can't get pulled out of the dropout. But so you rotate that dropout a little bit. You have to stiffen up the fork. In my case, I didn't want it too stiff. So you're kind of really on the edge of something disc capable that's not going to chatter and go crazy, but also will be compliant, a nice riding fork for all the people building the rim brake bikes that can have like a lighter fork. I could nerd, and obviously you can see like I get excited about this stuff, but this was kind of the thing. It's like,
I feel like this is the intro to your master class right now. We're just getting like,
Yeah.
this is just the very tip of the iceberg, man.
Yeah. So that's the latest bike, and I'm so proud of it, and I'm so happy to bring it into the world because it's the ultimate bike co-op bike. It's the ultimate bike dork bike, and its commercial viability is low. It's not the hottest, greatest, newest transmission, hydro, blah blah blah. It is the ultimate in back compatibility. Yeah, and so people that see it can really appreciate it. And it's been really fun. And the same along the lines of the coaster brake, when you offer a product like a coaster brake or a Hachita fit everything frame, you attract the customer that is also really excited about the same thing. And that's just a fun thing that that's like really. And I don't blame anyone for going into a bike shop, buying an entry level Trek. Great, go ride bikes, great.
Yeah.
But what we've done and created this little tiny community, or this little sphere of people that are really interested and into the kind of the dorkiest of bike design and product. So that it's been really fun. And this latest Hachita is very gratifying and very fun to do all the different builds. You can see building disc single speeds or retro tours or stuff like that. It's lugged. I wanted it to look real, period. And then I put a paint job on it. So it's definitely a throwback, a little bit outside of like our general raw style. But I thought, yeah, it's kind of a throwback, a little bit of a departure from what we're normally doing. So put a paint job on it. And I think they turned out good. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
That answer really segues quite nicely into the next question I wanted to ask you. I mean, I think like on first look, a Moné or Moné bike, I
both correct.
I alternate between the two. Honestly,
I think you're doing it. That's the most correct you can do.
Okay,
well, yeah.
I'm going to stop correcting myself. I'm going to be indignant about it. But the first thing you notice is like the aesthetics. Like a Moné bike is just like, when you see one, you're like, that's a Moné bike if you know what you're looking for. But if I understand correctly, you have a background in mechanical engineering. And so when we're talking about all these things, I wanted you to give us an insight into kind of your mechanical engineering background.
I'm educated as a mechanical engineer. I mean, I have an ME degree. I worked in industry a little bit through a few internships. As soon as I graduated, I became a ski bum. So I don't want to disrespect any mechanical engineers in saying that I am one, because, I went to school. It was hard. I'm proud of the accomplishment, but graduated and realized I was looking at maybe like working as an engineer out west to get a job closer to the ski hill to then maybe ski some more. And then I thought I could just shortcut all that and go live in a ski town. And that's what I ended up doing. And I just worked at a restaurant and kind of lived the ski bum lifestyle for 5-6 years. And that's kind of when I picked back up. I was dirtbagging a lot, doing like road touring and stuff like that. And then I thru hiked, and kind of through just like talking to people and being more connected, got exposed to bikepacking and the Tour Divide. And the Tour Divide is what really kind of reignited my interest in bikes and building bikes and mechanical things. Because before that, I was more interested in being as cheap as possible and traveling as much as I could. And then when I kind of found the Tour Divide, I thought, I really want to sharpen my training, my physicality. I want to sharpen, I started doing like a few Vipassana retreats, what effective or not. I just had this like a holistic idea. I want that my mind, body, and machine to just be sharp. And I really want to like attack this Tour Divide with like purpose. And so that's kind of when I got back into giving a shit about bikes, and then kind of like flexing a little bit of my engineering instincts in bike design and stuff like that. And I ended up getting very a fortunate connection with James Bleakley at Black Sheep and interning with him, building Black Sheep through him, kind of riding the Tour Divide, and then the subsequent year setting up a makeshift shop and pool maintenance room in the condo I was living in, and building a frame and building a bike and riding Tour Divide. And so that kind of design iteration and kind of exposure to bike packing really like set me forward in like a really fortunate path to like start designing and building bikes.
That first Tour Divide run, was that 2012?
I want to say somewhere in there. There were 3 years in a row. Maybe 12, 13, 14. That sounds right.
I think so, based on my internet sleuthing.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, thanks.
Did my homework. Tried to.
But that was those Tour Divides and the Divide route itself. I just owe a lot of where I'm at now. I mean, I live in Silver City, last town on the Tour Divide. And it's a magnificent route. If you're a hardcore mountain biker, it's not that. It's nothing like the Arizona Trail as far as terrain and challenge like that. But just bringing, have you ridden Divide, Patrick?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No, 2 kids. It's hard to get away for that long. I'm gonna be one of the old white guys out there. For sure one day. So yeah.
Well, see if Billy Rice is selling his tandem anytime soon, and that'll put a trailer on the back, and there you go.
Well, when he did it with his, I think his daughter was 16 at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
taken my kids bike packing, and initially they were pretty into it and pretty willing. My oldest now is 15 and has her first boyfriend, and she's a great kid. I haven't lost her completely, but she's less inclined to go do these types of things these days. And outdoors is kind of yucky right now, but I'm still hoping that the seeds that were planted, like they're still in there. And I think they'll bear fruit one day. But for right now, she's a teenager.
It seems like a good awareness, because I feel like you could really spoil a lot of things pushing too hard.
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree with that method of parenting. I mean, not to segue too far off topic, but, I think one of my jobs and roles in her life, or both of my kids' lives, is to help them find their own joy and happiness and the things that are going to, fill their cup. And they might not look like mine, and that's okay. Right. And so, I'm a facilitator in a lot of regards. One of the questions that I thought of while you were talking about, how you were living the dirtbag lifestyle, living very frugally and prioritizing adventuring, riding on bikes, doing, skiing and all this stuff. And now you're in this stage of life where you've owned this business for 12 years. I have to assume your outdoor recreation time is cut way down from what it was in the dirt bag days. And I'm wondering just how you find the different seasons of life. Are you finding that you're really content and happy and fulfilled at this stage in life, or do you find that you're missing that dirt bag lifestyle and living frugally and being able to adventure more?
I guess if I ever have any kind of if I ever feel lacking or frustrated with the amount of time I spend working versus playing, I really have to step back and consider how fortunate I am, because most days I'm clocking out at 4 or 5 p.m. and I'm going to go on a bike ride, and I'm pretty greedy about that. There's not a lot of scenarios where I need to, be in the shop at 8 p.m. or something. And it's not to say I don't. I just I feel really lucky to say, I recreate most days. I like to go on a hike with Erica or a little run. In the past few days, I haven't done much. I just been more vegetating and whatever, and actually catching up on work. But I do feel really fortunate. It is a different season in my life. When I was in my 20s, I was really militant about my finances for one, and then just straight dirt bagging. So it was just as cheaply as I could do things to spend more time away from work. And so there were times where I was out from my restaurant job for a year and just kind of like put together enough cash and then bike toured here and there. That was cool. I don't know that part of me knows that that's possible and I could do that. And $5,000 would get me doing another through hike and ding dong. I'm out. But, I also have worked pretty hard to kind of create this business. And so I think I'm proud and content with the new balance that I have struck, which is just here running the business and doing what it calls for me. But also, you see my website, it says I'm riding the Arizona Trail. I'm gone for 2 weeks. And I lose some business doing that. And that's fine. Because that trade is obviously something that it's important to me. Absolutely. So, man, it is interesting to kind of like look at different seasons of life and like consider like, oh yeah, before I was Miss Super Peter Pan. I'm trying not to work and go and travel and see everything. But I really like my domestic partnership and this project with our property here and then running this business is definitely fulfilling in its own way. And the one thing I look at a little bit is I'm not stacking a ton of cash to necessarily retire. My overhead has definitely gone up and I've gotten softer. I'm 40 now, which is kind of crazy. So that has happened like it happens to everyone. I think that's not unique to me at all. But one thing that I may be looking more and more at is like, I wouldn't mind getting to a point where I back off of the amount of work I'm doing. And that's called retirement for most people. And that I have 20 more years to 20 to 30 more years till that's a reality. So I don't have an existential dread in that regard, but I do know that it will require a little more examination from me and my small business to make a little more headway than just keeping up. So that, I guess that's the next season as I look forward is like making good decisions and trying to get to a place where maybe I'm not working as much as I do now because I really love what I do. And when I go and I don't keep track of the weekend. I'm working on a Sunday, all that. That doesn't bother me at all because there's a lot of weekdays where I'm on the Arizona Trail, for instance.
Same. Yeah.
So being able to have that flexibility for me is really nice. I
went into a restaurant recently. I'm sorry for this segue, but to relate to what you just said, I went to a restaurant. I took my daughter. They're supposed to have this like Monday night deal. And so I try to be a frugal person. I'm like, okay, great. They're having this deal. We'll go to this restaurant. And I go and I'm like, yeah, we'll have that deal. And they're like, okay, that's great. But today's Friday. And I'm like, oh. And the deal was only for Monday. But I oftentimes, I mean, the only time I need to really understand how calendars work is if, I'm scheduling a podcast or, life things. But yeah, weekdays, weekends, it's kind of all the same in a lot of regards.
Yeah. I wanted to just check in with you really quick. You recently were in Guatemala. I was kind of like, when was that trip? When were you there?
I was there in February. Okay. It wasn't a bike trip. It was just a tourist. It was more of a surfing trip than anything. We spent a couple days in Antigua and then we went down to a little really tiny surf town called El Paredon and surfed there for 4 days. And it was pretty wild, man. Like right after we left, this volcano that was right outside Antigua that I forget the name of right now, erupted. And the same day, I mean, this was like 3 hours away at the coast, that little town, El Paredon, it burnt down. Like 80% of the town burnt down. And so like we left and everything just like erupted. It was really sad and pretty wild, but it was a great trip for us.
Yeah.
Speaking of international travel, though, there was one that I wanted to talk to you about because my first and only international bike trip I've ever been on was in Oaxaca. And I've absolutely fallen in love with Oaxaca. We've been 3 times in the last 2 years. This last time, the first time we went, we're like, oh, we definitely have to bike this. My girlfriend and I. And so we finally got it done. We rode from Oaxaca de Juarez. We did the first part of the Grand Dirt Tour that Cass Gilbert designed. And then I created my own route going from San Jose del Pacifico, and we boogied down to the surf town that's super popular.
There's Puerto Escondido, but then
Puerto Escondido. Thank you.
Yeah,
my gosh, yeah, the brain isn't firing right now. But I saw you rode that in I think 2021 with Cass Gilbert. I was curious what route y'all did.
Honestly, as you say them, I don't know. I just did the Cass Gilbert route.
Yeah.
I didn't have a map open. I didn't look. I know we were on a lot of his because we went through San Jose del Pacifico. And I think that's kind of maybe the outer reach of his upper loop. I don't know if he has a prescribed route that goes down to the beach or not. We were discussing it.
Not from. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, we didn't make it down there, but I think he had it all in his mind. He goes, "Oh, you go here and here and here." I don't know. He had all the ideas, and I was happy to tag along. So.
Yeah, no, he's a master route creator, and especially 100%. There in Oaxaca, living there. I mean. He's got a spider web of routes, and those are just the ones that's published. What's in his head is probably twice, what that is. So you can just follow him anywhere he wants to go. It's going to be a good time.
His routes are really great too. In a lot of when you're tagging along, he's really focused on hitting the Sunday market and then going to this popsicle stand. And he even puts it in the notes of like his favorite place to buy tortillas or whatever. He really has a focus on his routes are really wild and fun and interesting. Especially we would be in the middle of a town and then his route would go down an alley and then it'd be on another alley and then you'd be in dirt and you'd be like, oh, back to dirt. It's like normal people would just like take roads out of town and then get back on whatever dirt. But he like right in the middle, he would just be doing weird stuff. And when you follow his routes, he's just like, so enthusiastic, and he'd be apologizing for dirt or pavement whenever we were on pavement, but that's his style. He's just such a dedicated bike rat, and I think for normal people, you're happy to ride a little pavement or, happy for the reprieve, but he is so dedicated and focused on making these routes interesting and unique and dirt oriented that he is just like, that is his focus. And he just doesn't have this lazy part of him. Whereas I think like myself and a lot of people, we're just like having a good time on a tour and it's like, hit some pavement, whatever. This is great. Yeah. I'm happy to ride dirt routes and everything like that. But Cass doesn't have that lazy part of him. He's just focused so single pointedly on beautiful routes and the dirt portions and the riding, and it's really inspiring, being around that guy, of course.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I mean, everything you said is so spot on. There was this one section I remember in particular where there was a really nice paved road that we were on for a period of time, and I'm like you, it's like I love the dirt, but then when you get to a section of pavement, you're like, okay, sweet, well, we can cruise on pavement. Then you get to the dirt and you're excited about it again. You're like, oh, sweet, dirt again. Well, he takes us off this nice paved road that we were only on for like a couple minutes onto this super gnarly, barely a trail, like wasn't even sure if we were on anything, it was just like really rocky and gnarly. And then we're in a dried up arroyo and we're riding through that for a while before like you literally have to climb out of this drainage ditch to get back onto this road that has been here like the whole time. And that's classic Cass, man. It's good stuff. He finds all of the dirt, all of it. So, I mean, you've ridden all over the world. I mean, not all over, but you're very well traveled. Oaxaca to me is just like 10 out of 10. I absolutely have fallen in love with it. I was curious what your impressions were. How does it stack up in your mind for outdoor recreation and riding in particular?
Well, I think you nailed it. I would recommend it to any of my friends. I would also say if you're a mountain biker, um, I really would encourage people to bring a mountain bike. I think the best would be a suspension hardtail. Not necessary at all, but if that's one of your things is riding mountain bikes, either a suspension hardtail or a full suspension that you can load up that you have your kit figured out for. That's not really my thing. I haven't really done um, full suspension touring or anything. But anyway, I think a capable hardtail or a full suspension bike that can also bike pack is the ultimate Oaxaca trip because they have that big enduro park right above Oaxaca City. And I don't know, Cass often bike packs in there. It's like something stupid like 6,000 feet above town. And
Yeah.
so he will bike pack and ride into that park, and then it's a trail network that's being developed all the time. That's really cool, and really like interesting enduro riding. So like a lot of people just have the pickup truck and bring them back up to the top, but you can self shuttle or whatever. But these downhill tracks are really amazing, and so I think that's part of a really cool double headed trip, which is do one of Cass's loops, go to all his tortilla stands, eat all the popsicles, go to San Jose, eat mushrooms. I think there's just so many things about there that is incredible. The one thing that you ever heard the name Oliver Sacks? Do you know that name at all?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not placing it.
He's an author, naturalist, something short of a full-on biologist, but someone who's like enthusiastic um, outdoor person. But he back in the day he wrote some books about his trips to Oaxaca and being a part of tours that were they're ferners, or I don't even know, there's a name for it. I'm embarrassed I don't know it right now, but there's people who like are dork out on ferns, and I believe Oaxaca has more fern species. There's more fern species in Oaxaca than there are Oaxaca to the Arctic Circle.
Oh,
So
wow.
as soon as you get into that zone, it's where the tropics meet kind of the northern climates. And so you have the elevation, and you saw it, like
Yeah.
the amount of plant life
Diversity.
and
Yeah.
interesting craziness, like the bromeliads and the things coming off the trees. And then you have like agaves in the forest. So you have these like crazy tropical forests with cactus in them. And it's just a
Wow.
wild thing. And so when we were there with Cass, we actually read aloud out of Oliver Sacks's kind of like trip report or whatever from, and he would be identifying all of these ferns, and then the next day Cass, he's dorks out on it too, so he would be identifying all the crazy ferns and the spore patterns on the bottom of these ferns, and it was really really special. And I recommend that to anyone going to Oaxaca, is like reading some Oliver Sacks before and when you get there, because it was just like so special to like read this. It was really well written, really fun, and then just to like real time look at the species, be in the same zones and experience that. I mean, that was a dynamic part of that trip. And that, I don't know, so enriching.
Yeah.
I couldn't, as far as comparing it to the rest of my bike tours, um, I don't know. I've done quite a bit of touring in Southeast Asia, and those are really nice. Um, I feel like Oaxaca has a little more opportunity for camping and maybe similar styles of travel to North America. As soon as you get into some countries, like most of Southeast Asia, India, those places have very, I don't know what about it, but you don't have the feeling like you want to be camping. You can get a really cheap hostel room or like a whatever posada for not much, 10, $15 or something. And so you're happy to kind of take rooms and tour a little different style. But I think they all have their own value. I think it's just expectation. If you come from North America and you're in India and you expect to be camping out every night, you might be a little disappointed. But if you just are ready for whatever style of travel that makes sense there, it can be interesting. Um, but yeah, I think you're spot on. I think Oaxaca is hard to beat. It's just and then the city itself, once you get back into town, get yourself a 5-star dinner, go to some of the crazy chocolate artisanal places, have a mural tour. I mean, there's so much art and young people that are doing like incredible things in Oaxaca City that I don't know. There's just so many
really
facets
cool
to that trip. Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll pay like $40 for a 5-star restaurant there for like, the best food you've ever had.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. I wrote down Oliver Sacks. So is it SCACKS or SAX? SCAX. Anyway.
SACS, maybe? I don't know. That's a quick Google.
Google will find it. Google.
Yeah,
Google will find it. No, I definitely want to check out that book, because one of my favorite things about going on bikepacking trips or a bike tour is like immersing yourself in the culture, the food. I want to know about the plant life, the geology. I mean, as much as I can, ingest from that area, like I'm into it, and it really like enriches my experience. I did.
You have to thank Cass. Thank Cass for that. That's his.
Thank you, Cass.
Yeah. We have a lot to thank him for, but that's one of them. This Oliver Sacks recommendation.
There you go. Sure. Thank you, Cass. I've been dying to get him on the podcast. We've been talking about it, and I missed him when we were in Oaxaca. He left from Oaxaca to New Mexico the day before I got to Oaxaca this last time, and we haven't been able to meet up yet, but hopefully one of these days. I did go hiking in that area where you're talking about, that enduro section. On our second trip to Oaxaca, we hiked up there, and one of the cool things was that there was a huge enduro event going on. I mean, absolutely huge, and it was really cool because the cycling community in that area is like super bought in and really rich as well. And so it's just great culture, great for cycling, great for food, for art, for biodiversity, like all of that stuff. Like you got the mountains, you got the oceans. It seems to have a little bit of everything.
Totally.
I don't know where this fits into the conversation flow, but I was listening to your episode with our mutual friend, Matt Mason. And y'all were having a discussion about the percentage of public land in Iowa versus Texas. And you were like, is it less than Texas? Because I know Texas doesn't have very much. And so to clear that up,
thank you.
Texas, I think it's like right under 3%. I think it's 2.9%. And if I remember correctly from the podcast, Matt said that Iowa was 1.5% public land. But like if you take into the scope of Texas is so big, 3% of ours is going to be quite a bit more than 1.5% of theirs. So there you go, Matt and Cjell. That's the answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a bunch of it has to be Big Bend, right? Like, because that's so massive down there. So Big Bend has to be like a big chunk.
Yeah, Big Bend, the national park and state park, it's contiguous public land, contiguous chunk of public land, 1.1 million acres combined. So that's the most of it. And then the other bigger chunk is on the east side, in the Sam Houston National Forest and the Davy Crockett National Forest, where my East Texas Showdown race takes place. Those are kind of the two biggest land, public land masses that we have in Texas.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I wanted to ask you one more question about your bike company before we dive into AZT stuff, because we've been hearing a lot about tariffs. And I'm curious, like, how you're positioned and how you're dealing with those tariffs, or how they're, what impacts are you already seeing? What's the lay of the land there?
I was talking to someone. I'm absolutely no expert at all.
I think we're all learning, right?
Yeah, I couldn't really. Here's one thing. I don't think I'm uniquely fucked. Okay, so I think there's going to be, whatever the impact is, it's going to be felt by a lot of people. Even I was listening to like a Pink Bike podcast on these tariffs, and there's like a domestic light manufacturer, and he described 10 different ways on which his domestic production of lights is going to suffer under tariffs. So a lot of domestic production will even have a tough time just based on what they're sourcing. I mean, him and his lights, he was like, oh yeah, I mean, you look at our batteries, I have no domestic source for a battery. So that's out. And then when you look at our competitors, they're bringing something incomplete from China, but I'm trying to build and machine a few things here and there and then have these batteries. Anyway, the point is it wasn't a win for him, And so I don't think I'm in a position in much where I'm saying this will be a positive, like I'll have a competitive advantage. When you look at my spread of products, I have a lot of the production frames are from this little shop in Taiwan. I see that I can't tell you where it'll be, how we'll negotiate with Taiwan specifically. But I see that as slowing down in the next 4 years. Maybe I bring in one round of frames or none or something like that. I do these SB2 coaster brake bikes, maybe be ramping those up a little bit. Maybe some more coaster brake stuff. The impact of my sourcing will definitely be felt as far as like the coaster brake hubs and those axles and, every little thing. But I think that's everyone and every little thing. So that to me just looks like kind of an across the board kind of pain point for everyone. Like I said, I just don't, as I look at it, I just don't see me in a unique position to prosper or suffer more than the next person. So I think maybe just reshuffling, if I'm looking at these like multi-$10,000 tax bills on bringing in rounds of frames, that I'm going to give pause to that. But I will be pivoting to whatever does make sense. And maybe I'm just riding my bike a little bit more, just doing slightly less business. I don't know. I really don't. And I don't
still
have,
early days.
Yeah. I don't have good insights, but I think my main takeaway is I can't control much. I don't know much. And so any kind of like moves that I'm trying to make right now would be short-sighted or just like, right. I don't know, as it comes up. Yeah, I'll address these things as I need to, but I don't think that there's like kind of a move that has to be made now. And I'm going to start doing a different line of hand belts or whatever, because I don't think anyone knows. And I definitely don't know. So,
yeah, fair answer.
But I'm comfortable. Yeah. I mean, we have very low overhead where we are. So I look at these bike companies that are you look at Revel closing and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's top of mind. Yeah.
Yeah. And that represents, a bike company that was killing it and expanded it into some overhead. I mean, they're like operating in the Aspen Valley and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know more than the next guy, but I do know that when times get tougher, those companies that are running a lot of overhead are in trouble,
Absolutely.
And the thing that it breaks my heart is when some of these companies kind of start stepping on bike shops. And I'm pretty connected well with our shops here. And so I just have a taste of like, when they start pushing on the bike shop, like, oh, you need to get your orders in now for next season. And you need to tell us how many. And also you need to buy this many pumps and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, don't be stepping on the shops when your company, you know what I mean? When you've over ordered and you need to start like putting downward pressure onto a shop.
Just because you're over leveraged doesn't mean you got to like push it onto the little guy.
100%. And especially the little guy, these are the people that are like creating the culture to like make things work for you at all. And so I don't know, I find that to be like quite frustrating when you see kind of these big companies feeling that squeeze and then kind of like putting that downward pressure. I don't know, that I find is sucky. I'm like anybody, but the shops just like need that support. And any way that I can contribute or anything, but I think the opposite of like pushing shops is like especially these times is like dumb. I don't know.
No, but for sure. I definitely agree with you.
That's tariff talk. That's all you
tariff
get.
Talk. That's all you get. Yeah, no, that's good. Anything else would go over my head. So that was great.
Yeah.
All right. AZT. So you have a pretty good blog post on your blog about your first 2013. I believe it was your first AZT attempt in 2013. Is that right?
Let me think. I have two on trail attempts. One, I really went for it and then really screwed up and stopped at the 300. I'm not sure if that's the post or not.
That's the blog post I read where you said you overextended yourself on that one. Underprepared.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Then the next one I did a couple years later, I came back and did finish the 750.
Oh, nice. And when was that?
I don't know.
Oh, a couple years later. So that would have been around 2015-ish.
Yes, I think that was 10 years ago or so, something in there. It's kind of interesting to think back. It was the single speed record, which anytime that I can say I set a single speed record was definitely before true athletes were out there. So, but that was, I don't know, that was a really fun time to like be really connected to it. And then to actually like get a single speed record. And, you know, it's funny, at that time, Scott Morris was running things and he said, "Oh, I don't keep track of that single speed record. I don't care what kind of bike you rode or whatever." And I'm like, "I'm keeping track, Scott."
It matters to me.
Yeah.
God damn it. That's so funny.
It was. And I don't know. And a lot of these bikepacking races, I really enjoy if you're looking at the results, if your goal is to set the single speed record, and then at the end, the organizer goes, "I wasn't keeping track." It's just like such a kind of, that's how these things are. They're like big, grand adventures. And if your whole goal is to appear on the internet in a certain way or something like that, you've really like kind of screwed yourself and screwed up a little bit, because, you know, these are trips of self-discovery and communing with nature and all those things. And don't get me wrong, I love the try hard. I love the camaraderie. I love that community, and the race and the competition brings that out. But I love the cruelty of that takeaway. I mean, I've ridden the Tour Divide 4 times. I have 0 finishes, right? Because of fire, because of flooding, you know? And so I just think those things are really cruel, and it's just kind of poetic justice. Like, yeah, you're out there, and guess what? It didn't matter. You know? And you were really trying hard and you wanted it to matter, but you kind of have to recalibrate as to like what the things are about. And like I said, it's not binary. It's not like, oh, you're competing, so you're blowing it. It's just more like, oh, you're competing, you're trying hard, and sometimes you get kicked when you're down, you know? And so I don't know, but I did give a lot of thought to my previous times out on the Arizona Trail while I was out there this time. For one, the 750 was considerably easier than the 840 miles is now. I would say it's 90 miles more single track bike pushing. You know, they made it tough. And I think that comes a lot from Alexander, Johnny, Stremke's, Connor, like that single speed crew. Those guys are hard asses, and they have kind of been pushing that like every mile of the trail whenever possible, that whole lemon push up thing. And that it kind of has stemmed a lot from them. And I think John has really taken that too, is like not being on the Arizona Trail because it's too hard is not really a good excuse. And the unique part about the Arizona Trail is that it is hard. And so when you're out there, it's not all, and that's the other thing too, it's not all terrible and hiking trail and not bikeable. There's like a huge chunk of it that's really fun to ride. And then there's also the really hard parts. And I think that combination makes it a unique event and a unique route in bikepacking that is like a tough challenge, as tough as it gets, and very fulfilling. You know, it's like you were out on AZT, right? Yep. I remember when you were like going to do a little group start or something like that. How did that go for you? What was the?
Yeah, so that was spring of 2024, and I think there was well, I don't think, I know there was 4 of us that showed up for this ITT, and for some people it was an individual time trial. For me, it was an individual time tour. But I mean, it went great. I mean, to date, it is one of the most like fulfilling, rewarding, enriching experiences I've ever had on the bike. Like I fucking loved every minute of it. Unfortunately, my ride was cut short in Tucson. I got heat stroke and was just completely out of it. And I had a hard deadline to get back to be a dad with my kids, and I just didn't have the time window to like take a rest day or two and recover and keep going. But my hope is to get out there next year. I'm kind of devoting this year to work because business is busy, and I'm really trying to like focus on like building a better foundation for like the business. And then I really hope that sets me up well next year to be able to go and take another attempt at it. But absolutely loved every minute. Like I really like it when a bike adventure really has high risk, high reward, and high consequences. And like you feel that when you're out there where there's limited water, you know, everything in the desert is trying to kill you. It's hard. And you really feel the weight of like everything that I do matters, you know, like every calorie matters, every water stop matters. Like, and I really enjoy like being in that environment because I feel like it's like a real true test of yourself. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. Absolutely loved it. Can't wait to go back.
If I could offer
please
a small reframing, riding from the Mexican border to Tucson along the Arizona Trail is a spectacular and amazing and really tough bike tour. And the fact that you surround yourself with psychopaths to make you say that, oh, I couldn't keep going, it is like a little disappointing because I wasn't it really hot? Didn't you? I recall like a lot of people dropping like,
yeah, I didn't do it during the group start, but it was really hot. I don't remember that. I mean, but it was like in the hundreds or whatever. I mean, it was hot as fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that in itself an accomplishment. You know, there's so much spectacular and really hard riding. The Canelo Hills knocked me on my ass fully and wholly. And, you know, I consider myself an athlete and a person that is capable on a bike and not more or less than you. But what I'm saying is just, I don't care who you are, riding and traversing some of that terrain with a bicycle is tough. And so to really like get through a lot of it, and you know, south of Tucson is no joke. You know, there's just like so much.
No, I really appreciate that reframe, and it's something that I think that like I would, if I was roles were reversed, I would push back against someone in the same manner you just did me. But we hold ourselves to these like crazy high standards. But to elaborate on that, like I am. Like the only bummer for me is I didn't get to see the rest of the trail. Like I was really just looking forward to seeing the rest of it. But it, you know, as I said to myself at the time, it's going to be there. It's not going anywhere. I can go back whenever I'm ready and I have the time. I'm tickled. I am so proud of what I did. And anyone who's ridden the AZT knows that just the 160 miles is going to fucking kick your ass. And so it really, but it helped like inform like how much even more badass to do it for 840 miles and be out there for 15 days, you know, I mean, and that's something to shoot for. But yeah, I have no shame in not being able to finish. I only take away like super positive, like memories from that experience. Like, yeah. And I mean, it, you know, you just, the thing about the AZT, and I think this would be a good thing to talk about is like, I don't think there's any way to like really comprehend what you're getting into until you get out there. Like what other, you know, bike trails or, you know, bikepacking trips or whatever are similar to AZT that you could be like, oh, it's like that. If you've ridden this, you can, you'll do well in the AZT. You know what I'm saying? It really does like, in my mind, stand alone.
Yeah. I mean, that's 100% true. If more people rode the CDT, that would be like the big dog, but it is so, even bikepacking.com says we don't publish a CDT route specifically because we're not trying to encourage people to get out there and do it, because it is a lot of trail that's not oriented towards bikes at all. But that would be the only parallel of something way stupider. But yeah, like you said, I think that's spot on. There's really the Oregon Timber Trail is kind of comes close as far as a single track focused route that spans a lot of miles. But yeah, as far as something that people are getting onto consistently and testing their bike packing prowess, that AZT is kind of the pinnacle of that challenge. And it's funny. You're like, okay, well, what if I just walked a lot more? What is there a way you could make it easier? And I think the answer to that is no. As soon as you're making forward progress, it is extracting a ton of energy and resource, and it's so intense. And so I'm not saying hiking it would be easy, but the bike part of that thing makes it uniquely difficult. It's really, it pushes on your kind of resolve quite a bit. And that, for me, that's what happened on my trip is the first day I was kind of getting out there. I wouldn't say that I've done this long enough where I wasn't like blowing my load in the first mile or something, but I was kind of getting out there gingerly. I was very excited to be back on the route and everything, but the Canelo Hills are like unbelievably difficult, and you can't even put a finger on why, but it is plus 90 temps, and it is just the super steep nature and kind of the water pressure a little bit. You're carrying quite a bit of water. So you got a heavy rig, you got stupid steep hills, and you got hot temps. And that really, day one, knocked me right on my ass and humbled me like crazy, because the first thing, my exposure recently has just been chatting with like Justin Dubois and Alexandra and Johnny. And when you talk to them, these guys are like ninjas as far as like making difficult stuff kind of sound fun, you know? Yeah. And so when you talk to them, you're like, yeah, I'm going to get back out there. I'm like these guys, and I'm mixing it up. And by the end of that day, I was like, I need to refocus, and my new focus is finishing, and I need to start making soft boy decisions to finish. I need to really like, so that first one was just riding into Patagonia, 5 miles out of the way, one way. And I was just like, I don't know what Patagonia has, but it is not the Arizona Trail, and that is what I need right now. And so I went in and I laid in the park and just ate food, and then got a room and chilled. And I got out of there relatively early, so I kind of salvaged what was a sporting pace. Like I'm not saying, oh no, now I'm touring, because when I'm out there, I'm trying, I'm going to wake up early and ride till dark. And so I don't want to say that like, oh, I just turned it into a bike tour, but I'm not pushing into the night. I'm not making any decision that will make it kind of at all more difficult for myself. I'm just kind of focused on maintaining kind of like good mind space, a good healthy body, everything. So I took my knocks out there for sure, but that first day really refocused me into like, hey, don't be beating yourself up. However long it's going to take, and just get to the end, because the whole thing's spectacular, and there's so many miles that you haven't seen. And so I was really grateful for that kind of first day, and that reframing for me, that was really important. Also, I kind of like, in my mind, I was just making this coaster brake lunacy. Like I thought this was kind of a fun way to present the whole mission. And I was like, oh, coaster brake world record, it's funny. And so I really wanted to like maintain that mission as well. Like I just didn't want to be knocked out because I was trying too hard. And so I don't know if I have any point there, but I wanted the coaster brake world record. If
that's the fucking point. God damn it.
Yeah, you have to finish. So
yeah, you got to finish to have the world record.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So
What brought you
But
back to the AZT? I mean, it's been almost 10 years. You don't go ride 184 miles on the AZT on a coaster bike without a good why, I would assume. So what brought you back out after 10 years?
well, I know, I mean, I'm familiar with enough, bikepacking routes and Tour Divide and stuff that I know the uniqueness and the specialness of the AZT. And, the single speeders, Alexandra, Stremke's, they're my friends. And so once you're around them, the bug doesn't go away.
Right.
If you hear them. And so it was a couple years ago. I set off from Silver City. I rode my stupid coaster brake bike from Silver City, kind of gravel pavement, to the start. Well, to Bisbee, actually. And in Bisbee, I think Chris Reichel was like in France or something, but he has like a ring cam or something where he like talks to you like a spirit or something in his house. He's like, you stay at my house. And then he's like chatting with you. And then he called up this kid named Caleb. And Caleb came over to the house and he's like, you want to ride a little bike? And I'm like, yeah, ride some bike. I probably shouldn't. I'm like trying to go ride the Arizona Trail, but whatever. So we're going to go ride. And he gets on the coaster brake and he starts kind of riding a wheelie and he goes, this is a little off, something's, and I like, give me that thing. And so I hop on it and I start riding a wheelie and I'm kind of going up this little slope in Bisbee there. And it was because of my hubris. It's because I really wanted to show this young punk how to ride a wheelie. I'm going a little faster and faster. And then I loop it out onto my foot and I rolled my ankle hard.
Oh shit.
And I was just pretty bummed, but I was thinking, I can't be hurt right now. This is stupid. I'm fine. And so I think the rest of that day, the next day I rode to the start and my ankle was the size of a grapefruit. And I'm thinking, dude, you know how much walking is on this trail. No, stop. And it was a bummer, but I mean, I just rode to Sierra Vista and got out of there and ended up in Tucson. But, so that was my last, I think that was a couple years ago where I had ridden from Silver down to the start and then hurt myself like an idiot. So
at least you did it doing something rad like a wheelie, and it wasn't like you stepped off your bike wrong or something completely ridiculous. At least you were being radical with it,
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, it's been in recent times, it's definitely been on the thing, and this year it was. One of the tricks is if you're working for yourself, and you don't like this. For me as an ITT, it's just me. And I didn't even put it on the calendar hard. I just thought I'm going to try to do it in April. And then April kind of rolled around and I'm thinking, you got to go. And it's kind of tough because it's like, well, I got this and this and this to do. I'll do it after this. And what happened was I kind of started sniffing around for a ride towards Tucson at least. Just because I was over trying to make it harder than it needed to be. I was just like, okay, I need to ride that direction. And just so happened a couple older folks from Silver were going to Tucson. And I said, I'll take a ride to Benson or Dragoons, whatever's just north of the Sierra Vista to start. And they were like, and we're leaving tomorrow at 10 a.m. And I'm like, shit. That's it. And I had to get my E-Trex fired up, went to Walmart to get battery. It was kind of a late night getting everything together, but it was like, okay, this is it. And then they showed up at 9 a.m. They're like, we're leaving at 10. And then they showed up at my house at 9 a.m., like an hour early as I'm trying to get all your stuff together. It's kind of critical. But I went out and I said, hey, you need to give me like a solid 20 minutes here because I need, and they were very sweet and brought me to the Dragoons. I rode down to Justin Dubois' place in Cochise and he brought me to the start. And that was just like a huge kind of leg up and it felt responsible especially after I hurt myself on this last bike tour to start the Arizona Trail. I said, I'll take all the help I can get. And so he brought me down to Montezuma Pass and then I just kind of dropped into the border and got my little booty kicked,
Hell yeah. Did in 2013 you had on your blog you had a really funny pie chart of like your time on preparation and like 70% of the pie chart was fucking with Garmin. So I was curious if you got that figured out by now.
Dude, same thing. I can't even tell you. But okay, so what you have is you have John Schilling, and his website's actually hard to find. The way I found it is like because it's not the AZTA, it's his AZTR race page, kind of, and it's got the worst SEO ever imaginable. Try to Google it,
Yeah.
and it won't even come up.
I've had the
So if you
same,
go
yeah.
to if you go to Scott's page, that kind of comes up, and then you click on his link to get to John Schilling's page, and that's where those GPXs are. And then I have an eTrex 20, so this pathetic, worthless eTrex, whatever. It does the thing. You plug it in your computer, and then it's like a drive. So you just like find the folder that says GPX and then slide a file over into the GPX. I'm like, I pretty much remember how to do this. So I slide a file over, eject, disconnect, not there. And I do it like 20 times. And on the 21st, for some reason, it started working. I don't know. I can't even tell you how or why. And it's not confidence inspiring at all when it's like maybe on your device. But on it, that part worked for me the whole time. And it's really nice. Even though the base maps are terrible, I tried to improve that. That didn't work. I couldn't figure out how to put a good topo map underneath it. So it has like, it's a line and a dot. Is your dot on the line? That's it.
Good luck.
That's kind of all you get. And when you're having navigation, basically you just pick what it looks like and then just check, am I still on the line? Am I not?
Yeah.
That's kind of what you get with those things, but it's enough. And it sits on your bars, which is much better than the phone out of the pocket or something. So dude, again, I would say, yeah, times fucking with Garmin that night was a big part of that pie chart for sure.
That's funny.
Oh man.
Maybe I need to do an episode with Garmin on just how to load files, big files. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they give you, and you have to dumb it down to 10,000 points. And I feel like 10,000 points, what is this, like a Super Nintendo? Like, I don't know.
We're playing Donkey Kong.
Oh my God, that has more points than 10,000 points. Like what? But
maybe the old Asteroid game from Atari.
Yeah, I got it all dialed in and working again. But my eTrex that sits on the bars is only kind of a race piece of equipment for me. Even on bike tours and stuff, I'm not that worried about having the route on the phone and not that worried about staying on the line necessarily. But in this case, setting that world record, I had to.
You had to be dialed. You had to be professional. Bring out all the equipment. Yeah, nice.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, speaking of equipment, we have to talk about your bike. You and this bike set a world record. So, like, what bike did you run? Obviously, it was Coaster. What do you want to tell us about your setup for your AZT this year?
Well, the setup I was kind of actually had some curiosity around. I am at the end of my supply of La Roca frames. I have, no matter how hard I try to predict or order or anything, I always have smalls and extra larges, and that's where I'm at right now. That's what I have. Yeah. I had a guy not too long ago, and he was kind of like requesting a lot of really nice build parts, and I was like, all right, let's make this happen. And I'm like, but I just have these XLs. He's like, that won't work. I need a medium. And I was like looking at the medium I had, like my personal bike, and I was like, that's it. So I took it apart, got it stripped, refinished the whole thing. And I don't think I posted it, but it's a beautiful one. I rebuilt another triplane for him. Yeah, it's a spendy bike. It's an important part of my business. So I'm like, yeah, this is my business. I'm selling bikes. Erica will kind of, sometimes when I run out of bikes, I'll be like, hey, you want to sell your La Roca? And she'll go, no, then I won't have it. We're different that way,
Yeah.
I'll sell any of them. But so the curiosity was kind of like, okay, all of these La Rocas are designed to take a really long dropper post. That means they have a short seat tube. Mm-hmm. And that means that when you talk about the size of a bike, mainly you're talking about top tube length or reach. Those are obviously related, but the bike can get a lot longer. But the short seat tubes means that like any rider could ride any size of frame because they can stand over it. There's no worry about how tall the frame is. It's kind of just how long it is. But now if you say, okay, well, it's this long, but my contact points, my seat's right here, I can bring the handlebars back by, in essence, what I did on this bike is flip the stem around. So instead of the stem going forward, it's going backwards. And so then that's bringing your handlebar closer to the seat. So here I am 5'8".
So did you ride an XL?
Large. I rode an XL, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wild. And
so,
you were how tall?
5'8".
Okay. And that worked? How did that work?
Well, when you think about it, you know, if your stem, a really short stem is like 40 mils, like 1.5 inches or something. And if you flip that around, that's an inch. So you take 3 inches off your extra large or 4 inches, that your handlebar is right in the right place. And effectively, you're riding something really like with a really long wheelbase, but your contact points are just fine. Like there's nothing out of the ordinary about the way the bike fits. The way the bike handles is different, obviously.
That's what I was going to ask.
There were 2 things that I did. Because I'm so radical, on the shelf when I'm building this bike up, I have a slack set. So you have a head tube, and then you can put a headset that actually tilts the fork within the head tube. That's a head tube or like a headset angle adjusting headset, a slack set. So I had one of these on the shelf, and I was like, oh, that'll be rad. Yeah, we'll make it more slack. And so I had this kind of like long extra large, and then I slacked it out more. And the fit was fine. I mean, with the bars, the way I had the stem fit, the fit was fine. The long wheelbase was manageable, totally fine. The slack set really kicks it off the way I've designed it. I run a 65.5 head angle on the thing. And so you're running like a 64 head angle, and then you're getting into like pretty slack territory. So that combined with a short offset forks steer slower. So you make the bike steer slower and then slower again. And it's really stable, but it doesn't like a lot of the tight, techie hiking trail parts of the AZT, like switchbacks and stuff like that. So in the Canelo Hills and stuff like that, I had a little like, man, this is the part of it was just this like aesthetic and the hubris. I shouldn't have just run the slack set. I think the longer wheelbase is like something that's manageable and fine, but the slack short offset, that part kind of, it was like slightly less than optimal in the techie stuff. When you're like balls out hauling down, like, yeah, great. This thing's
bring it on.
This thing eats chunder. Yeah, you would run this bike in a bike park, you know, or downhill runs. And I can't say I was disappointed at all in the performance of it, because it was very unique. And I learned, you know, you learn so much when you start messing with geometries. And as a frame builder, I was like, oh, very happy to have set it up and kind of learned my takeaways from it.
Right.
But I would do it again. I'd build another XL for myself. I thought that was kind of a cool spin on it. And yeah, other than that, everything else worked out fine. I had a dropper post, like a suicide dropper. I was kind of like going back and forth whether that was stupid and I should put a button on the bars. But just the under seat lever was fine enough. I've done enough of that where it was like, you just kind of get used to it. And yeah, the rest of it, I, you know, just kind of got all my gear back out of like, ran, just frame bag, kind of a modest setup. I just a foil bivvy, one of those emergency bivvies, and I used it 0 times. The one time it rained, I crawled into a culvert.
Saw that picture, yeah.
So I don't recommend going tentless necessarily. Like I can't recommend being stupid like that, but for me, it worked just fine. Like the one day that it's looking ominous and raining, it's kind of stressful. It's like, damn, I'm going to have a night in a tinfoil bivvy in the rain. That's not a recipe for sleep. But I found a culvert that worked good. The funny thing about a culvert, it's like when it's raining a little bit, it's perfect. When it's raining a lot, you're kind of
you're in the danger zone.
Yeah, you're definitely not in a good spot. But
hey,
I looked
kids,
at the wash.
Don't try this. Don't try this at home.
Yeah. And it was actually kind of breezy in the culvert, and so I was like, I think for the cost of like 15 to 20 minutes, I like got up and stacked boulders and totally sealed up the far side of the culvert. So I didn't have like a cross breeze in there. Kind of like it was good.
That's a good idea.
But, yeah.
What about the coaster brake aspect of this? I mean, I assume you're the only person who's ever ridden the AZT on a coaster brake that we know of.
That's
gotta be. So give us an honest review. Coaster brake on the AZT. How did it do for you?
Um, well, one thing I would generally my ethos is don't make it harder than it needs to be. And as a stunt, as someone who builds, makes, and promotes coaster brakes, it was good and effective. Like here you are asking about coaster brakes, and it is something that's near and dear to my heart, and I do love it, and it was fun. I have to say that coaster brake bikes are just so much fun, and having ridden a lot of them, the riding part, the handling on the AZT isn't like a huge stress. I would say it's kind of like single speeding. It's like if you have a geared rider look at a single speeder, the geared rider's thinking, I just shifted my bike 100 times in the last minute. You know, how can you possibly ride a one speed? And then when you get on it, you're like, yeah, I could see how it's harder, but it's not insane. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're walking a little bit more, not that much. The cadence is just a kind of a different, like a muscle pattern. You're just not spinning, those sorts of things. So the same thing with a coaster brake is kind of like if you have two hand brakes to go from like that to one brake on the entire Arizona Trail is like, whoa, how does that work? And it's kind of like, well, as soon as you start riding it, you realize that like you realize the limitations and then the ways to not make screw ups, like, you know, in which sections you have to go a little bit slower to control your speed with just the one brake. But the things that actually were harder was pushing, like Mount Lemon. Mount Lemon is very
because you can't
stupid.
engage the brakes.
Yes, you're getting it.
Yeah.
So when you're going
even
up
in the
these stupid
Canelos and
sections,
stuff, there's some where like you have to like push your bike up, engage the brakes, take a couple steps, and
100%. You get it immediately. Yeah, that's a crux. And the Canelos, Mount Lemon push, just a few other kind of certain sections where you're really like having a huge effort to technically hike and climb and manage your bike while fatigued. That is a little, that's definitely a little bit tougher. So yeah, I think that was the biggest one. And then the other one is extreme descents. I've ridden most of the Colorado Trail on a coaster brake. I've also done loaded touring in the Himalaya with like wildly big vertical and in descents and stuff, and had no problems. The thing that will kill a coaster brake is a ton of vertical with steep trail and not much reprieve. So while it's like building heat and then building and more building heat. And on the 750 10 years ago, I would have made it from Mexico to Utah, no problem. On this new 840-mile route, there are two specific descents that have been added that are unique in their persistent descending that really kind of cook the grease in the hub. So the first one is Mount Lemon. Coming off of Mount Lemon, it used to be Oracle Ridge, and Oracle Ridge, there's some mining at the top, kind of towards the top of Mount Lemon. There's a mining program. So the new suggested route is one ridge over. It's called Red Ridge. And this thing is burly. Like it's steep and it goes and goes. And I ended up selling my bike at the end. And the guy who bought it, I was really trying to be a little careful because I was like, I showed people I had to rebuild my hub out there, whatever. But I'm also not trying to like tell this guy, you're going to need to rebuild your hub all the time. This sucks. You know, I'm like trying to paint a picture that's like realistic. And he's a guy called Brad from Tucson, and he had ridden the 840. He had ridden the 800 before. And he goes, oh yeah, I lost my disc brakes on Red Ridge, like the levers to the bars on Red Ridge, like you're cooking your fluid. Yeah. And so the coaster, as high performance as you want to make a coaster brake, the heat building in that section was significant. And I don't know if it was a good idea, but I would stop and like wet the hub down with my Camelback, because you start smelling the grease, you're like, yeah, this is happening right now. And so I got down totally fine. And when you take apart the hub, the grease still remains in the hub. It hasn't like vaporized, but the grease itself has become tired. Whatever is in there, I don't know the metallurgy perfectly. I'm running a special grease from a guy called Rob Bauer. And that's kind of a different story. I would like to share a little bit about Rob, but
he's on my show notes to ask you about Rob, so we're gonna talk about him.
Yeah, but so I'm running Rob's grease, which is a special coaster formula. You can't do better than his grease. But that I got all the way to Calvin, so that's another like full day's riding. And then coming down into Calvin, I noticed it getting a little grabby, and I'm like, this is kind of less than optimal. Like what happens is you give a little bit of pressure, and then it actually will kind of go and like lock a little bit. So you have to it just is getting less than optimal. And I thought, I'll make it to like lunch today, and then I'll sit down and re-grease the hub. And as soon as I have that thought, the hub starts going, and it's like lock up. Like as soon as you touch the brake, it's locked and the wheel doesn't go. Yeah. And my first thought is like, damn, is this it? Because I usually, like, as soon as you start getting less than optimal performance, you re-grease the hub and it's great. But then when you get into that zone, you're like, damn, have I done some damage? What's going on back there? And it's no longer getting to lunch. It's a rebuild now. If you want to go forward on the trail, you need to take apart this hub and deal with what's going on. So I did take a picture of it, but I like flipped my bike over. I had some tin foil from a burrito. And so that was my like workspace, because stuff's going to start falling apart, greasy stuff that's like, you don't want it to fall in the sand. Yeah. And so I kind of just like set out this piece of tin foil, and then basically, I'm not going for a full rebuild. That's like taking the hub all apart, cleaning out all that old tired grease, and then putting in new grease and fixing it. The style that I'm going for it's just take it far enough apart to get the brake shoes out, re-grease those brake shoes, put it back in, and then tighten it all down. There's also loose ball bearings that can go everywhere, a couple different sets of them on your drive side. So the trick is to like keep that drive side all pinched together and those balls in place while you're like trying to back out the other side of the hub and get the shoes free. So that I re-greased the hub, great, and it worked perfectly. It was just like, oh, great. So nothing's broken. Nice. And I remember I dropped a shoe in the dirt, and then I had to clean it off, and it kind of gets all over your hands. There's no way to like wash your hands. And so I remember dropping it and then telling myself right there, tighten it up. Like you need to nail this. You need to perfectly rebuild this hub right now. And if you're not successful, you're not going forward. And so don't, like, I know you're tired, whatever, but you need to concentrate. You can't drop anything else. You can't screw anything up. You need to be dialed, and you need to nail this. And it was really like, all right, like a refocusing. And sometimes on the Arizona Trail, there's certain things that come along. The other one for me was the North Rim. When I got out carrying my bike from the Grand Canyon, you're so wet from sweat. You're so blown up. I mean, it's the hardest thing. Other people have said it, but it might be true. It's the hardest thing you ever physically done. Yeah. All you want to do is lay down. All you want to do. And for me, it was right at dusk. The temperature is plummeting. You're on the North Rim, so you're over 6,000. It's getting cold as fuck, and you're wet. And I remember thinking, like, Cjell, you need to concentrate. You need to get your wet clothes off. You need to get your bike apart so you can have access to your warm clothes. You need to start putting them on. You need to do it right now. And just kind of this like refocusing from like tired, sad guy to like a person that really needs to do this. And that was where a couple times, like rebuilding the hub on the trail and then dressing myself on the North Rim were 2 times where it was like, refocus. I don't care how tired you are. These things need to happen now and yeah. Well. And so those are a couple of them.
That's like the weight of the AZT that I was talking about earlier, where like there's so high consequences. You really have to be dialed in and like take those moments and realize the importance of like taking care of yourself and your gear if you want to like keep going, right? Like, totally. Did you enjoy that aspect? Is that an aspect you enjoy of this type of expedition?
Yeah. Yeah, it really, it's an instant sense of accomplishment. As soon as that hub start working, it was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like that was so critical. You were
Technically.
there, like you got it and you pulled it off. And that feels really, really good. The other one too, and it happens to a lot of people, is sewing a tire because
Hmm.
you're riding along, you're thinking about how much water, you're thinking about how far, blah blah blah, you're doing your thing, and then you slice a tire, and it's like you're not doing anything else. You're sitting down and you're sewing. Get out your needle and thread. You don't do this very often, if ever, but right now you're sewing a tire and you need to do it well. You need to sew it up. You need to do like tight stitch, boot and back, sealant, get it back going. And if you don't, you're walking, your effort's over. You really like
Yeah.
that is another one where it changes from like tired, this, that, blah, whatever, to like you're sewing and you need to do a good job.
Yeah.
And that's
I
another one a
love
lot of
that.
people get into out there on the AZT. And it happened to me on my 750, taking a big hole in my tire and just going from like kind of like a few thoughts in your head, like, oh, how far to this place, how much water I got, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, nope, you're not going anywhere. You're sewing, and that's kind of like that, like you said, those are unique challenges on the trail that you need to like refocus and really dial in. And
Yeah.
it demands it of you, the
You get
trail
to
really
really
demands
test
it.
yourself. Yeah. You get to
Yeah.
really fuck around and find out, which is pretty cool, I think.
Totally.
I got one more
Totally.
question about coaster breaks, and this might be a really dumb question, but I was thinking, like, when I was thinking about preparing for the show, I was like, not only are you on a coaster break, but it's single speed. And then I was like, well, wait a second. Can you even run gears on a single speed or on a coaster break? And maybe this is an obvious question to people. I have no idea, but is that even an option? Can you do a geared bike with coaster breaks? And if there's anyone in the world that can answer this question, I know it's you.
I love this question. This is really great. There is a couple of hubs, some old and some new. My cargo bike has one. It's called a two-speed kickback, and they call these brakes kickback brakes. Sometimes that's like an old school term, but kickback is like when you pedal backwards, right? That's your kickback. So kickback brake, but a two-speed kickback is like if I just kick back and maybe I contact the brake or not or whatever, but there's a planetary gear in the hub. So it's like a two-speed internal geared hub, and the actuation is just a kickback.
Okay.
So there is a two-speed kickback. Um, I have run successfully on my cargo bike for a long time. That's running boxes around Silver City. So I don't know anything about running a two-speed kickback down Red Ridge. No idea. Um, I wouldn't try it. I mean, the Venn diagram of single speeders and coaster brakes is a perfect circle, and there's not a lot of people who want one and not the other, really. So, but
Yeah.
it's a good question, and the reality is, if you think about a drivetrain, it has a spring, it has a tight part of the chain, and then a loose part of the chain that runs through your derailleur and is slack on the bottom.
Yeah.
So like you have a loose part of the chain, and then the top is the tense part of the chain. And on a coaster brake, the tense part of the chain goes from the bottom to the top to the bottom to the top, right? So you can't be running a spring derailleur tension system with a coaster brake because it needs to be true single speed. It needs to be tight on the top and the bottom. So you can't have any kind of spring or tensioner on the bottom of the chain, because when you went to pedal backwards, it would have to untense itself and get tight, or what you follow me. So there's no running you can't run a coaster brake on a bike that isn't designed to be single speed. It has to be a single speed tension kind of thing.
That makes sense.
So,
Yeah. All right. And now we all know. What coaster brakes are, and you can't run gears. But if anyone can figure out, I bet you might be able to. Although I think what you said about the Venn diagram made a lot of sense too. Who's gonna want to ride? Go ahead.
I just kind of wanted to button up the kind of my coaster challenges.
Yeah, please.
Pushing. Anytime you were on Mount Lemmon, there's a few times where you're actually like walking your bike down these sections. I didn't do that too often But that's a huge challenge, is if you don't have handbrakes and you're trying to walk down a technical section, that gets a little stupid. And then the other one, like I said, there were 2 sections that have been added that are these sustained, unique descents that didn't exist in all of the 750. You didn't have a scenario where you had a steep and long enough descent that would cook grease. And now the new 840 has 2 of them. This one off of Mount Lemon is Red Ridge, enough to cook hydraulic fluid in a disc brake. I mean, it's like real deal. And the other one is called Gold Hill, and it comes out of what is the Mazatol wilderness area. You kind of like do a reroute, but you really end up high in the Mazatols, and then you come back down south of Payson. And Gold Hill is another stupid, long, burly section. And it's also really technical. And I ended up riding it all and thinking like, damn, I shouldn't have ridden some of those sections. Like it was sporty. But
yeah, sporty is a great way to put it.
Yeah. I got to a point where I was thinking about my hub. You can kind of start feeling its performance fade a little bit, and you can kind of smell it. And I thought, I'm just going to take a second. I pulled my sleeping bag out. I'm texting a few people. I answer a few emails. Like, I'm taking a full-blown break to let my hub cool off. And with all that combined, it still cooked it. Like that descent was just so, it was enough to cook that grease. I got into Payson, and in front of the Bashas in Payson, I took a long time at Bashas to just like eat, shop, charge. I'm just hanging at the Bashas. And then I thought, you know what? They have pavement out front. Why don't I rebuild the hub so I can keep track of all my stuff, and it's a good place. So this time I just let my shoes kind of poke out the back of the hub and just grease the ends of the shoes. And I thought, that'll get in there. That's good enough. And I put it back together, and it was not good enough. I got to Pine. So the rest of that day, I climbed up to Pine the last, 30, 40 miles. And then in Pine, it did the thing like, it was not good enough. And I was actually really concerned because I thought this half-assed rebuild where I got grease in the shoes was going to be good enough. And my thought was, man, I got grease in there. Am I just screwed? Is there parts of this hub that are totally roached? And the answer was no. It just needed a better job. You needed to get those shoes all the way out and all greased. You kind of need to paint grease front to back and get it all enough in there. And so I say, how many times to rebuild the hub? Those 2 descents were really what cooked it twice. And I had 2.5 rebuilds, one that just didn't take. Yeah. So I rebuilt it twice. That second one was just in the trailhead in Pine. Just took it back apart and got it all greased up and worked again. So, and I was very happy because I was thinking that was an existential threat. Like,
right.
Is this it? But when it started working again, rode it all the way to Utah. It was just like, hell yeah, this thing's, we're back on board. We're back going again. So
yeah. And you're learning a lot about coaster brakes along the way, like what they can truly take, what kind of punishment they can take.
Totally.
One of our listener questions from Evan, he wanted to know like how long, and I assume his question is like on average, not necessarily on AZT, but how long in between like typical rebuilds of a coaster hub?
It depends. It depends on your riding. Most people are bike dorks, honestly. So your coaster bike is probably part of a quiver of bikes. And if you're not riding it every single ride, it's a little different. That's me. I'm riding a lot of coaster brakes. But at the same time, I'm also riding a handful of other bikes. So my coaster doesn't get ridden every day. But that I just say that as I'm going multiple years on a rebuild.
Okay.
So, and it's really, if you do encounter one of these uniquely steep descents, and I'm talking about nothing that's on the Colorado Trail, nothing that's on the old Arizona Trail, like these 2 descents are like huge. That's when if you get into a situation where you cook your grease, you're rebuilding your hub. And that may be like when they talk repack hill and stuff like that. That is a possible scenario. I've never ridden repack, in Marin County, original mountain biking. That's where they name the hill Repack Hill, repacking coaster brakes.
Okay.
So I don't know like which point it's really demanding a rebuild. We do run these cooling fins on the hubs, and that's a big deal to extract temperature out of the hub. Because like if you think you have a disc brake, that sees a lot of airflow. If you have a rim brake,
Right.
you see a lot of airflow on that braking surface. If you have a coaster brake, it's inside your hub. So these cooling fins act to disperse quite a bit of the heat out of the hub. Um, so the answer to that is if you're an average to aggressive rider with other bikes, multiple years, if you're only riding coaster brake, probably 6 months to a year, give or take. And if you're a coaster brake, you're a dork. So for you to like take that hub out and get in there and rebuild it, it's kind of gratifying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Just another reason to tinker with your bike.
yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's really fun and unique. And like that, it's another place where bike people go, oh, it's coaster brake. That's cool. And it is cool. It's like kind of interesting and also very fun. When you lock that brake up and all of a sudden it's giving it all the brake you have. You're coming into a corner. All of a sudden you've learned counter steer. You've learned Scandinavian flick. There's so much that happens in lockup coming into a corner that it's like, it's a quick education in bike handling and bike rotation and a lot of things. That's really gratifying when you kind of get your head around it. It's like, oh, I came in a little hot, but here I am, like gave it a flick, and now I'm off, and I'm like digging that front contact patch in as the rear rotates around. Those are skills that you take back to your handbrakes for sure, and it's I don't know. I hope I'm not trying to sell it too hard because it's also stupid and you shouldn't do it. So,
no, I think people will be super curious to hear about this. I know I am. Yeah, I'm not going to be riding the AZT on a coaster brake, so this is my one opportunity to kind of hear what it's actually like. So I think it's good shit.
I think in the future, if someone challenges the world record, it would be very gratifying for me. My only encouragement would be don't try too hard. Yeah, don't try too hard. Please keep it, over 12 days would be optimal. So
that's funny. It's impossible to wrap up a 15-day journey on the Arizona Trail in a not 5-hour podcast. We'd probably actually have to do longer than that. But you shared on social media just some brief highlights, and I know you haven't gotten around to sharing a whole lot about your AZT. You mentioned that you were going to be sharing a lot more and doing podcasts and all kinds of stuff, but I thought it might be fun to break down some of the or elaborate more on what you touched on social media. And I take it so like we're talking like Four Peaks, the Lemon Push, Red Ridge, like all this stuff. These were all new additions since the last time you rode it. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go through these, and I would just have you like elaborate on each section because like, so for example, starting off, you said Four Peaks. Wow. So elaborate on wow.
Sure. Yeah. Four Peaks is kind of like a wilderness area, like just north of the Superstitions. So the hikers are hiking the Superstitions, and then they're hiking Four Peaks Wilderness, and those are off limits for bikes. So in the past, the route was you get into Picket Post Trailhead. That's outside of Superior. So that's on the very, very outskirts of the greater Phoenix area. And then you take a few gravel roads, and you even got on the highway to get into Gold Canyon. In Gold Canyon, you took a right-hand turn to take a gravel road all the way up to what is Roosevelt Reservoir. And then you ride the pavement along Roosevelt Reservoir to basically kind of south of Payson. And then you kind of got on some 2-track to get into Payson. So I just described a huge chunk of the Arizona Trail that you are in essence kind of replacing with dirt or the gravel and pavement. And since then, that has all been John Schillingified to be combinations of 4x4 and single track and gravel. So all of that big gravel road and the pavement south of the reservoir has all been replaced with this this Four Peaks reroute, and it's spectacular because you're right on the border of the wilderness, and it's really like, it's up high. You're getting into alpine. When I was in that culvert, I woke up the next day and all the peaks are in snow. So that's kind of like the area that you're in, and it's just spectacular. And the fact that you were down below riding pavement along that reservoir, and now you're on this huge up and over on a very spectacular thing, and then you actually get to grab a lot of Arizona Trail as you descend off of what is that Four Peaks reroute. That is really worthwhile, and it's such an amazing swing from what it was, which was, don't get me wrong, anytime you're riding the Arizona Trail, get me on some pavement, it's a reprieve, you're breathing. And to have replaced it with something so beautiful and so amazing is challenging and tough. It's really tough if you know what it used to be because you were relaxing before, but that part is really, really cool. The other part in that section is kind of when you used to kind of go out to, I think it's Highway 60 coming into Gold Canyon. Now you stay on these kind of like spider web of these like state lands and a few lands. And then you get on some like community volunteer, like unofficial single track, what do you want to call it? Like an area that has a ton of different like little single track pieces. And
Like
John
network?
Schilling has taken, a network. Thank you. You're on this trail network, and it's very primitive. It's not like professionally built, but it's very interesting and really cool. And for me, it was at night, so it's kind of an extra navigational, like interesting. And it's all of kind of John Schilling's backyard. And the network is really neat, just to how it kind of twists in these trails. It's really actually hard to find the first one because you're on a gravel road, and then all of a sudden the GPX goes and you're like, where? Oh, this little like cattle trail. So that's a really, really fun addition. And what was really fun is I came up and over, and if you looked at those pictures, there was a giant longhorn cow on the trail, like, and really surprised each other. Just came around this corner, and this thing is like 10 feet from me, huge, horns, and it's looking at me. It doesn't care. It's just like, dude, you need to move, And I'm like, oh, God. And I was like telling Schilling about it. He goes, oh, I know that cow. I know that one. So he like knew the specific longhorn that was like hanging out there.
It's like the trail guard.
Those are really, really cool additions, like of the biggest swing from like what used to be dirt road and pavement has now turned into like a spectacular section. And then even when you go north of there, what is the Mazatals? That's another wilderness area that bikes aren't allowed. And that reroute has become 4x4 roads, kind of more craziness. And then it becomes the AZT kind of in this big canyon that we didn't used to see, where you kind of going along creek bed. It's a little annoying, but also like really interesting. I slept down there and was soaking wet just because of the amount of moisture kind of in this little canyon. And then you kind of climb out and you're on top of Gold Hill. And I just told you about Gold Hill. That thing is gnarly craziness. So all of those are kind of additions to what was basically like Phoenix to Payson has now become really amazing and spectacular. And that adjustment in the trail is just like, wow, really, really cool. You asked about Lemon Push. This is kind of a big one.
Lemon Push, you said, ouch.
Yeah.
and we hear a lot about a Lemon Push. So how did it go for you?
I think we can pretty singularly blame Alexandra Houchin. She has friends, Justin Dubois, the Stremkes, but I'm just going to point the finger right at her. She's the one. And you know what? Her point is sound. The point is you're riding the Catalina Highway up Mount Lemmon. In parallel to that is the equestrian route of the Arizona Trail. So you're literally looking over at the Arizona Trail as you ride the pavement up the highway. What's our problem? Why are we not riding Arizona Trail? Is the excuse that it's too hard? Well, what kind of excuse is that? it's a reasonable one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question.
Well, I started climbing. Bug Springs is one of the most famous downhill, like a lot of downhillers from Tucson drive up, shuttle to the top of Bug Springs, and then ride that section as a downhill, and then we'll shuttle. That's like a shuttle park, basically. And so to push up Bug Springs is like pretty dumb. Like you're just looking at it like the sections are just steep, really rocky. There's a lot on Mount Lemon. There's more than 100 times that day where you pick up your full bike and you're just walking with it on your shoulder. So the times at which you're pushing your bike up a section, you're kind of like almost a welcome change to the full on like carry that you have to do. And so those are really tough. I did 2 switchbacks on Bug Springs. I've been down Bug Springs on like downhilling like normal people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I did 2 switchbacks, and you're way above Tucson, so I knew I had signal. So I pulled up my phone, I called Alexandra, and I was like, Alexandra, what the fuck is this? Like, what are we doing here? And she had the best encouragement. It was so spot on. She's just such a tough character, and she has such an appreciation for the tough things. And she really just like succinctly was like, this is one of the new and toughest parts of this trail. That's beautiful. There's also some like really fun descending as you get off of Mount Bigelow, which is kind of one of the mountains as you go over, and you're going to be so proud of yourself when you finish this thing. And I can't wait to watch your dot go up. And I was just like, I got off the phone and I was like, God damn it.
I guess I'm doing it.
and the other part about that, I had this plan in my head. I was like, Alexander, what do you think about this? I'm going to ride the road. I'm going to descend Mount Lemon on the trail, and then I'm going to ride the road again. What do you think? And she goes, yeah, what do you do you? It's fine. It's no problem. But I'm just going to encourage you to really go through and suffer like everyone else has. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So,
oh man, she held up a mirror real quick. She's like, here.
Oh man, she's good.
That's
but
beautiful.
Yeah, everyone else, if you're hustling, if you're racing, and some of the, like, I have to give a credit to racers. I was talking to Justin Dubois. He said he was like going like hardcore, picking up, really like getting up these sections quickly. Whereas I'm like pushing, breathing, whatever, that from the Molino Basin campground to Summer Haven and then down Red Ridge and back up to Oracle Ridge. This represents, I don't know what, like 30, 40 miles, maybe. That was my whole day. That's a big day. For Justin, he said it cost him like 3 to 4 hours extra. So that's wild. That's getting off your bike and really like hustling on a lot of these sections where I'm dying a little bit. But it's not total insanity. It is finite. You will get up. So it is what it is. It's tough. There's reward in it. It's not the dumbest thing ever. It is the Arizona Trail. So
fair enough.
So
the next one is go ahead.
I was just calling what you were calling, maybe North Rim. I don't know if I probably mentioned North Rim.
Gold Ridge. Oh dang.
Oh yeah, so that's Gold Hill. I got the name wrong.
Oh, yeah. Gold Hill. Okay, so we talked about Gold Hill. We also talked about Red Ridge a little bit, and then you threw in the new Flagstaff stuff. Fun is what you said.
Yep. My theory is anytime you get near a population center, the mountain bike ability of the trail goes way up. So like a lot of the stuff around Tucson, all that Colossal Cave stuff is really great riding. Even like the Vale area, Gabe Zimmerman. I throw out these names, and when people do this to me, I'm always lost. I'm like, well, where's Colossal Cave? I don't know, somewhere in there, right? But anyway, this is like generally around Tucson. Really great mountain biking. Mm-hmm. The Phoenix is this is like, if you count Picket Post, amazing riding out there. Really cool. And then John Schilling's editions with this little volunteer trail network. Those are pretty fun. And then fast forward, like around Pine has like Highline Trail, which again, amazing mountain biking, really cool mountain biking. And then now the additions around Flagstaff are on mountain bike trails. and it's really cool. The one thing is you kind of get close to Flagstaff and you have 30 more miles of riding around Flagstaff before you get to services. So that's a big challenge mentally. As you see a map, you're like, here we are, Flagstaff. And it's like, nah, about another half day plus. Yeah. So the stuff around Flag and it's just great. I can share that I did run into big mud, and I took a few pictures of it. That's a place called Anderson Mesa. It's above Mary Lake, and this is south of Flagstaff. And I think John Schilling's talking about reroutes that would miss it, but it's this clay plateau that is death mud and of the worst kind. I've definitely done peanut butter. I live in New Mexico. I understand death mud, but this was a special kind of death mud. And even as far as you wanted to push into the grass went to death mud, and then combined with the grass and hay, it was adobe. It just like one rotation and you had giant chunks in your fork crown, just jammed up. So the thing, you go from like skipping around, trying to miss mud. I've been riding in the mud for most of the day, so you're kind of used to getting around stuff. And then all of a sudden you hit a section and it's like you're not rolling forward. Your bike is 40 pounds heavier. You have 100 pounds of bike to put on your back. So you think you're going to go forward and you put this 100 pounds on your back. No, it's not going to happen. So you're immediately like, okay, there is no option of going forward. You're looking around like, I can't pick this thing up. I can't go any further away from the trail. There's no rocks or, that like oftentimes you're looking for something, chaparral or something, hopeless. And what was really funny is, you just get in there and it's just like the world's falling apart. Like I can't go forward. How do I go backwards? It's just so tough. And then I'm looking for a stick and there's kind of a tree out of the way. So I lay my bike down and I kind of go straight for this tree and I nail a prickly pear with my foot, like a real young, healthy one. And so that was another time where you're just like, got a million things going through your head. How am I going to save myself? How am I going to extract myself from this? And now my foot's bleeding inside my shoe. I mean, you're sitting on the ground, take off your shoe, your sock, your gaiter, and trying to pick out spines. It was a real low point. It was a real low point. And, but I ended up getting enough off the tires, disrespecting your bike enough to like get it to roll enough, like 100 feet before where you really got packed in with mud. And you get it to roll, and then you can walk enough sections to then get back. And I wasn't too far from an exit trail. And so it was kind of a descent down to Mary Lake. That was pavement. It's about 15 miles south of Flagstaff. And I rode into Flagstaff and got a room. I thought it was my first thought is there's no way I'm going back there. That like you can't, there's in no scenario do I want to go back onto Anderson Mesa. And then I zeroed. I went to the sports store, like the used sports store, and I got a backpack for the Grand Canyon. I had some athlete's foot issues. I was carrying one set of socks, and that was bad. I was just wearing one, so bad move. So I bought a new set of shoes and two pairs of socks, and I threw away the old set. Just like so much, just like not a good deal. Anyway, so the used sports store, that was really good. And just spent a day where I was just like chilling out. And it's just kind of traumatic once you get stuck in that mud, especially if you're off course. I'm going to finish. I know what I've done, but I'm a little bit like, it's Coaster Break world record. I want it to be official. I want to ride all the miles, and I was a little bummed that I was going to miss that section. And I'd called John Schilling and he goes, yeah, you could try to get it. I don't know. Talk to some flag people, look at the through hiker page. And then also you're probably not going to be able to ride the North Rim. So maybe don't stress it, because it's springtime, too much snow. Mm-hmm. You're going to miss those miles too. So maybe don't worry about the full run. I'm thinking you got a good point there, John. I wake up the next morning, kind of have a lazy start. And I'm thinking, I got to go try. Because I rode from Mexico to Flagstaff to try to set the world record. And I want to do it. Yeah. And I went out there and it was dry. And I was able to just retrace Yep, I was able to retrace all the way back to where I had gotten off, turned around and rode Anderson Mesa, rode all the Flagstaff. And with the lazy start, 15 miles of pavement out, the out and back to where I started, 30 miles around Flagstaff, I was eating dinner in Flagstaff. It was a whole day. It was a whole day of Flagstaff again. And so,
yeah, but kudos
yeah.
to you, man. That's so fucking awesome. And also, how great is it that you got back? Like, how relieved were you when you got back and it was all dry? Like, that must have been one of the best feelings ever, because you were mentally preparing yourself for shit, fuckery, god damn it.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. And a big part was seeing the place where I had gotten off, and actually getting to, because you're right, I was riding the opposite way on the trail to go pick up those miles. I was just going to eat out and back that stuff, and to actually get to the section where I had recognized, that's it, I've been here. This is where I kicked that cactus. That is great. I can turn around. I was on a high. That was cool. And I got to the other side of Flag, camped kind of around Snowbowl, like the ski resort up there, and then was just reinvigorated. My next days were sporty, and that's really fun when people are watching your dot. I watched dots a little bit, but Alexandra and Johnny were like so ace because they would go, "Oh man, you rode that section so fast," and I was like, "Dang, thank you for noticing." I was really trying out there, but that was 100 miles from Snowball to the South Rim, and I just caught the grocery store there. So I was able to get my resupply done, and dropped in on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m. Kind of the worst time you can possibly drop into the Grand Canyon, but it was fine. I mean,
you said 7 a.m.
I probably woke up at 4:30 from the campground by the grocery store, the village, but then you have another 45 minutes to ride over to South Kaibab Trail. So there's some miles in there, and then getting your stuff together. So I was probably around 6 a.m. packing my bike up and dropping in, and every tourist, every person, everyone's like, "Oh, Saturday morning, let's get in there." You know what I mean? It's just busy.
Oh yeah. So, okay. I didn't know if it was heat related, once you got down into the canyon, or, but yeah, it's people. Just a lot of congestion.
Yeah.
So for the, talk about, the big ditch. But on your Instagram, you said North Rim beauty. But take us through that experience, hiking through the big ditch.
Well, I recall from my last time, with no preparation and kind of a little Camelback backpack and strapping everything onto that, I crumbled. I dropped in at 1:30 in the morning on my last. I have a 9-day finish on the 750, so that's sporty, as we say.
That's very sporty.
Yeah, and so at that time, getting close to the finish, I was getting to the South Rim, all right, let's drop in, let's go. I'm feeling good right now, and so at 1:30 in the morning, I dropped in. I actually, in the middle of the night there, ran into a rim to rim hiker pretty quickly and chatted with him. And then he was like, "Well, I got to go." And I was like, "Well, I do too." And I ended up jogging with this guy down to Phantom Ranch.
Whoa.
And that was a huge misstep. I really bruised my traps or what, dude, my shoulders were
your
just
collarbone maybe. Yeah.
Dude, everything about these chintzy little straps, the carry, it was smoked, and it took another 20 hours to get out of the canyon or something. I mean, it was brutal. I could not pick up and carry this thing more than a couple hundred feet, and it's such an awkward thing. And that was a hard part of my ride 10 years ago. And so I knew going in, I tried to. The last time when I hurt my ankle and failed, I had done a little bit of prep, rode my bike out to some mountains near here and then hiked up and down with it on my back. This time it's a great way to ruin a bike ride, is training to carry it. I mean, that's So I had again, not great prep. I did buy a bigger backpack and flag. I like an old used low alpine kind of that kind of bit me in the butt, because as soon as I really needed it, after Phantom Ranch, I started cinching my hip belt to move some weight around, and the clasp failed. And so all I had was kind of the webbing to tie in a knot around my waist.
Yeah.
And so that kind of was like less than optimal. And then just the reality of doing it, it's hard. I would definitely recommend, and I actually, I've talked to a few people. I talked to John Schilling for the pod, and he says, just get a permit, just get a camping permit for the bottom and you'll be fine. And the one thing that really frustrated me, I talked to Katie Stremke, and she's the only person that has ever said, oh, it wasn't that bad. And I think that she camped or she slept at the bottom with a permit. And I think the thing is just giving yourself a break to get some repair in your body, because the whole 22 miles down, across, and up is a lot in one go. But if you can break it up a little bit, I think it becomes more manageable.
That's super smart. And all the people I've talked to, I don't, no one's ever mentioned that they've done that. I haven't heard of someone doing that before, but that seems like a good strategy, especially for someone of my caliber. If I could ever make it that far.
Well, Schilling's smart too. And I think he got a permit before, and he said, yeah, I just slept for a few hours, but, you're not, the other thing too is you're representing the bikepacking Arizona trail community, and there's a lot of ways in which you can screw up and take water out of a hiker cache. There's a lot of marginally ethical moves, but in the Grand Canyon, you got to tighten your shit up, because people are watching, and you're representing this loophole that we've created, which is make your bike into bike parts and then walk your bike parts across. You can't have two wheels on the bike and put it on your back. You have to take the wheel off so you have bike parts. It's not a functional bike. And so the other part of that is camping in a national park without a permit is a big infraction. Yeah. And so you're flirting with that if you get down there. If you find yourself down there during nighttime hours, you look at a piece of grass, you're going to want to nap, and you shouldn't be doing that. And so John is just like, just get a permit, and you'll
even
be
if
good.
you don't use it, just get a permit just in case. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And the only people, if you're Alexander Houchin, if you're Justin Dubois, these guys know the challenge, and they know, and they're up in the front. They know they're getting across. That's a different deal. But I think a majority of the people would be well served to get a permit and just take some time at the bottom. That just makes the whole thing much more merciful.
Once you got out of the,
I did not.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, you did not camp?
No, I did not. All this advice to say I didn't have a permit. I didn't actually, I had a solid day, got in at dawn, got out right at dusk. And that was exceedingly challenging, as I remember it to be. Just that the hike out is just brutal. It's tough.
All right. You get out of the Grand Canyon. John Schilling was saying that, it's been snowing. And I remember when I talked to Ustinis that it was just like a mud fest getting out of the Grand Canyon. So what were the conditions when you got out of there?
Fine. The only clay, as far as I know, especially like say north of Payson and stuff, the only clay is on the Anderson Mesa. So the difference between mud and clay is obviously a lot. That's your wheels rolling and your wheels not rolling.
Yeah.
There's definitely it was moist, but there had been enough. It was a low enough snow year and enough melt that these late snows. Actually, it was Matt Mason, myself, and another couple buddies. Early March had kind of got a little caught in a snowstorm. I went on one of Matt Mason's hiking adventures in the Grand Canyon, and as we came out early March, we kind of got caught maybe 4 to 6 inches at the top. So there are a few snow events that happen in the spring here, but nothing to really pile up on the North Rim, and there was enough melt. So there was a few drifty spots on the trail, but generally clear, and I was able to ride all of the miles on the North Rim, which in the spring is a pretty big rarity.
Yeah. You got lucky.
So,
yeah,
because the alternative is just leaving the North Rim, riding the closed highway to Jacobs Lake. That's 40 miles of highway to Jacobs Lake. And that's what I did the last time that I rode. No question. There was no riding that trail. And when I started riding and got through it all, I was I was elated that, for one, I got to see the trail up there, and it's really cool that it goes back. It's this place called East View, and you get a view back over the canyon from up top. Like it's a lot of aspen forest. It feels very much like Colorado up there. It's cold. That Justin Dubois probably said it best. He's like, you don't have to worry about heat on the Arizona Trail. It's going to be hot. No question. Not much you can do. You're going to have to get through it. The cold is what's dangerous. The cold will get you. And for them, the fall last year was like 4 degrees.
Wow.
That's getting critical up there. So you really got to manage warm clothes and your sleep system and everything to handle sub-zero for sure. And for me in the morning, definitely cold. I had some breathable gloves, and my hands, I really had problems with my hands for a while. But it came around. I mean, nothing cold. I mean, we're talking just like kind of cold. Probably like what, I don't know, 20s maybe.
Uncomfortable, but not dangerous.
Correct. Yeah. And then the rest of that day is just like, you're really trying to not focus on finishing because you have 80 miles of mountain biking. So that's 80 miles of not finishing, or that's 80 miles of like enjoying beautiful trails. So I did my best to like enjoy what is the beautiful aspen groves and in a really special trail up there. Water's a little tough. As a rider, leveraging Far Out, which is the Thru Hiker app, is huge because the hikers are updating every single day the status of water supplies. So they'll tell you how much in a cache, or exact, and it's a great app because you open it and it's a GPS and it locates you and tells you exactly how many miles you are away from this water. So as soon as you know this one's kind of hard to locate, it's a cattle trough, but it's off trail this far and blah, blah, blah. You really have this app to open up. It says, okay, you're 0.7 miles away, heads up, whatever. So and then there's a hiker yesterday saying, yep, filled with water, filter's fine, or you know what I mean? Just notes like that.
Yeah.
And on the north rim, it really came in handy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. I wanted to give you a chance to talk about Rob Bauer. You mentioned him in your Instagram post and earlier in this episode, but who is Rob Bauer and why should we know about him?
Rob, so if I could just rewind a little bit, and I hope you don't mind me plugging my own terrible podcast. I actually don't think you should because you run a really nice one.
And no, your podcast is great, man. I fucking love it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. It's fun, and I assume the same for you, but it's like conversations that you kind of would love to have anyway.
Yeah.
And that for me was it.
It's a thrill. Yeah.
Yeah. And you did it for me. I chatted with you in Cruises, and then I thought, man, this is fun. I just want to call some people.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. Please plug your podcast. And I love to see all the other podcasts popping up because I'm just one person. There's no way I can talk to everybody. So yeah, I say bring it on, but absolutely. Let's hear about it.
That's the beautiful thing about podcasts too, is just it's such a rising tide, and there's like very little competition in it, I mean, you could feel a competitive sense, but as I listen to like comedy podcasts, it's really great to like see other comedians just cross-pollinating and like, oh, that's one. And I don't know.
Yeah,
I am a podcast dork. I'm like all day, every day on the podcast.
Sure.
So
yeah.
But anyway, my podcast kind of, a lot of people are like, we want to do this 5-hour episode and whatever. Cause in the past, some of the feedback I got was like, dang, that was long, dude. And so I'm kind of like, well, I don't care. That's how long I talked. And honestly, the success in this it's funny. Social media, you get likes, you get comments, you get in podcast feels like a vacuum. You throw it out there and then it's kind of like maybe someone comments on Spotify or something, but like very little back and forth, Yeah.
Yeah. You get very little feedback, oftentimes. Yeah.
Totally. So, it became, I thought, well, I kind of want to talk to a bunch of different people. Why don't I just try to do like little pieces and then put together a long episode with a bunch of Arizona Trail people? And as I did it, I'm over an hour with each person. I mean, it'd be like 7-hour podcast. It's not going to happen. So I'm going to just do like this week dropping every day. And then I have an enthusiastic follower patron who wanted to sponsor kind of the podcast or whatever and give away a bike. So he's buying
nice.
a Hachita frame and fork, and we're giving it away. So that's kind of a fun part about it. He's like really amped on everything. So as a part of this week, I'm just going to say you come to the web store, you buy anything, a sticker, a spoke nipple, buy whatever, and then you're entered to win this Hachita frame. And it's like, I should look it up. I don't want to give you a sideways plug here, but he is a Mazda Cadillac Buick dealer in North Carolina. So that's the sponsor. It's like, I was like, I think it's so off the wall that it's like, oh, that's fun.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Brown and Wood, Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Mazda. Big shouts to Jeff.
Shout out.
Yeah. Anyway, so that kind of became the format. We're giving away a bike, and I'm doing, I guess, 5. I got Alexander and Johnny. Really fun. They're just great. It's just like hopping on with friends. Mm-hmm. I got Justin Dubois. He's great. He's Justin. It's just fun to like, he has such a competitive nature and he's such an animal out there. So to really like get inside his head.
And one of the OG podcasters, one of the OGs. Yeah. The Desolationist. Yeah.
Nope. So we talk a little bit about Desolationist and what he's up to. And then just he's one of the few, I think there's only 3 people that have 750'd and 840'd. So it's kind of fun to talk to him, about the evolution and stuff. And then I called Stremke's and I got a bonus Esther Harani. So at the Stremke's house was Esther Harani. So I have those 3 on, which is really fun. And then I got Rob Bauer, and we went hard for over 2 hours. And then I got John Schilling because I wanted to get John back on and chat with him. Yeah.
Oh man, I can't wait to hear all that. That's going to be sick.
Yeah. So I got them chopped up, and then, like I said, they're just too long. So I'm just going to drop them like 1 a day for the next week or so.
Yeah.
Something like that.
All right. I'll definitely be tuning into that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just fun to chat, and like just chopping up Arizona Trail. It's just fun, like especially after you just get off, that's like what you want to talk about. So
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so Rob Bauer, my experience on the trail is almost overwhelmingly influenced by Rob Bauer. A lot of people don't know who Rob Bauer is, and I shouldn't say you should, that's too strong, but it's a shame that more people don't, because his contributions to the Arizona Trail are insane. He designed the crazy big gates, those like big boy gates.
Yeah.
There's over 150 of them along the route. Those are all Rob Bauer. So that's Rob amazing. Came up with the gate design. Those things are unified underneath the gate themselves. So when you look at it, it looks like 2 kind of things over here, and they actually have like a certain design. He explains it all in the podcast, but it's to let pack animals through with like big wide, like a lot of luggage on the side of a pack animal, but not a quad. So it's kind of skinnier at the bottom, and then it goes out. And so no quads, but pack animals. It's also 4x4 steel, and then it goes underneath. So the alignment of the latch always works, because the whole thing is actually like 300-pound unified unit. And perfect. They're spectacular. Like if you've used one of those gates, it's like, my God, have I ever used a nicer gate in my life? They're crazy. Yeah. And then half of them have a rollover. So Rob designed the rollover to be safe, approachable. You don't have to have big skills to use them. You won't clip your bars. There's just so much that goes into the rollover. All Rob. And
that's so interesting. I'm so glad to know that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the other part is really wild is he has built a ton of the new trails. So all of the stuff around Patagonia. So as you get out of the crazy gnarly Canelo Hills, you start to get into some nicer trail. And then after you cross the highway, I think it's Santa Rita Hills or something, that there's this huge section with like big views, and it kind of weaves and goes in. It's all machine built. So it's all kind of wide and bench cut. And that's all Rob Bauer. There's like 30 miles in there or something like that. There's a bunch more around. He lives in Oracle, so around Oracle State Park, kind of going up towards Oracle Ridge. There's more Rob Bauer there. And then There is like Highline Trail. I think there were 3 crews working Highline Trail, so that's a huge improvement out of Pine. But if you ride Highline, it's spectacular. It's a really cool section of trail. A ton of Rob Bauer in there. He's built 2 massive bridges, like 40-foot big steel girder bridges that he builds in Oracle and then puts on his truck and helicopter crane. I mean, it's crazy. There's a couple rain collectors. You maybe remember one at Freeman Road. Those are Rob Bauer design, and they're really special because he's calculated how big a roof you need to collect how much water, what kind of filtration, and then how you can install them and bolt them together in place without a foundation and without a welder. So they're modular enough that you can bolt them together on top of a mountain. Like Picket Post has a crazy one that came in on a helicopter.
That's so rad.
And the little bit of the sad part about the story, and you can hear it in Rob's podcast, is Rob was selflessly doing this for a decade, volunteering a huge amount of his time, taking crazy kind of like pay cuts. He was doing trail for like $1 a mile when competitive rates are like $7 a mile. So he's making huge sacrifices to really improve the Arizona Trail. And I think some of the bad juju is a little bit around a lot of his designs going out and now being copied with no credit and no acknowledgement that Rob came up and did almost all of this. So he would get a certain dollar amount per gate, but then volunteer driving from Oracle to State Line and installing like 5 or 6 at a time. And so there's just like this huge sacrifice. And you can kind of see it 2 ways. One way is like, Rob, you shouldn't let yourself be taken advantage of. The other way is, Rob, what an insanely selfless gift that you've given. And what the legacy of it is crazy. You can't even imagine. I mean, a decade, hundreds of thousands of dollars of labor and materials from Rob, and so, and like I said, I would never point a finger at someone. Oh, you don't know about this guy. It's not like that at all.
Right.
But, knowing him and knowing the offering and knowing a little bit about these gates and just like, holy fuck. And you ride from Mexico to Utah and you see him everywhere the whole way. And just the amount of effort, he's just an amazing character. And I got a couple hours on the pod. He's funny. He's a really close friend of mine, but he gets in the podcast. He's talking to the public a little bit more. So it's a beautiful episode with him kind of just like offloading a little bit of his baggage too around it. But important, it's good. It's a real human thing, that he was able to offer so much. We don't have this. He doesn't have the same good vibes that necessarily I do, but we can appreciate his legacy for sure. It's really important. The other part about this is Rob is kind of the granddad of modern coaster brake modifications and souping up. So he started something called Coaster Culture. And that was him kind of just like figuring out how to make coaster brakes work for adults down mountains. And he figured it all out. Axles, the bearing upgrades, the grease. He worked with some people to like come up with this special grease. The cooling fins that I tried to really partner with Rob. I came up with a cooling fin. Well, first I was like, Rob, can I buy some cooling fins? And he goes, yeah. And then like a year later, hey, Rob, what about those cooling fins? Yeah. 2 years later, hey, Rob. And then I designed another set and I'm like, Rob, I'm not stepping on any toes. I made myself a cooler. I made 20 more here. I'm sending them to you. Why don't you sell them? Rob is the worst entrepreneur that ever was. So in the end, like a year later, I'm like, hey, Rob, remember those coolers? Like, let's get those going. And he goes, yeah, go for it. No problem. So I kind of like inherited his cooler coaster rebuild business a little bit. Just because Rob's busy as fuck. He's building the Arizona Trail basically.
Yeah.
So, and Rob, John Schilling, any of these Arizona Trail people will tell you, oh, no, there's all sorts of people. This is a huge effort. And that's totally true. Right. So when you try to like point blank, give them any credit, it's like, yeah, I appreciate that. But I also want you to know that I'm part of like the ATA and blah, blah, blah. And so that I am not so far up on it. I can't point blank tell you how it all breaks down and who contributed what, but I know that Rob did a huge chunk, and especially when it comes to the gates and the bridges and the rollovers and the catchments. And it's wild how much he did out there. And then to be riding it on a coaster brake with his grease, with his modifications, that for me was like really special, like really, and he didn't really realize it, how powerful it was, but for me, and then you can't even escape it. Like you're feeling sentimental, and then you're like, oh, yep. And here's another fucking gate. And it's the best one I've ever used in my life. And it will be here for the next 100 years. Thank you, Rob Bauer. Yeah. So I appreciate you asking about it. And it feels good to just kind of like get a little bit of his story out there, because
no, I'm happy to hear it. Yeah, like you said, I mean, it takes a village. He's not the only one out there, but I hadn't heard of him, and so no, it's good to hear about the. I mean, I think it's important because it offers another level of like respect for the trail when you understand it's not just Rob Bauer, it's not just John Schilling. Like there's probably hundreds and hundreds of individuals that have contributed over decades. Yes. But to get a little like peek into like just that one aspect of like what he has done just gives you a sense of what a privilege it is to be out there, and like how much people have sacrificed and dedicated to the community for us to be able to go recreate out there. And so, no, I mean, we got to give hats off to these people. And I'm looking forward to hearing that all of those podcasts, man. That's going to be really sick.
Yeah. And I at the risk of being somewhat sexist or anything like that, Rob Bauer's wife is Michelle Bauer, and she is insanely capable, and she is the business side of that whole thing. So Rob and Michelle are really the ones that have made huge sacrifices to make all that happen. Rob is the one with a lot of the skills and the know-how. He runs the excavator, so it's easy to point a finger at Rob. But Rob's family and Michelle really had run his trail building and gate building business for those 10 years. So I really want to shout out Michelle too, because she was really like a huge logistical part of Rob being on the excavator and building the collectors and everything like that. So huge gratitude to them, their family. So
well said. Well said.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about a fun side quest you had on your AZT this year. This is probably also a world's first, but I don't remember. I think it was like several days before you were finishing the AZT, you put the bike that you were riding on the AZT up for sale, I believe, as a means to be able to afford to find your way back home. Something along those lines.
Yeah, that's a fun one. And that's a unique position for me as someone who, I'm running a commercial enterprise to sell bikes. So I have a special connection. That build was really special, actually. It had a lot of, that hub, that wheel set, everything. I built that for me. So it had all these little details in it. If you want to buy a bike, one of my old bikes is like a good one, because I'm like really every little detail I'm nerding out on.
For
whatever.
Sure.
Not that, yeah. But so that was kind of a fun. My thought was like, maybe I can get someone in Flagstaff interested in the bike. It's probably around they're not crazy expensive, but it is like a $4,000 bike. On my website, I'm probably selling that bike for like $3,200. And I'm kind of going back and forth. I was like, I don't want to devalue it too much, but let's knock $1,000 off. It's a used bike on the AZT, $1,000 off, $2,200 to really entice some people. $2,000 if you come to State Line and pick me up. And I thought that, maybe that works out.
That was so good.
And so I thought maybe someone from Flag would be interested in the bike, and I could, and whoever wants to buy it, just connect with them and take care of them as far like, I don't know. I was looking at the bike and I'm like, I'm definitely sending you a new rear tire. I was like, not gonna, but in the end, the other part about it is a little tough for me is one of my pet peeves on these big adventures, and it especially is very strong in the thru hiker community, is with this kind of like new generation of thru hikers. I thru hiked PCT in '09, a different time, different place. I totally get it. But now, as people have these Facebook pages, the Far Out app, the community kind of grows. But on one end, you end up with these people who really don't understand kind of the self-sufficiency and sovereignty that is expected of you out on the trail. And so when they need anything, it's like, oh, I'm at this trail, I need a ride to here. There's a guy, he's on the page, he goes, I ran out of fuel and I'm at Reddington Road, can someone bring me fuel? And it's like, you're asking someone from Tucson to drive 3 to 4 hours on a 4x4 road so you can have macaroni tonight. Like, I don't know, that stuff really just kind of grinds me a little bit. And so on my recovery, that was very alive with me. It's like, this is your adventure. Don't act like people should drop things and like come take care of you because this is so important. So it was a little tricky because I did have some friends, and actually it was my sister and brother-in-law, or my sister-in-law and her husband, my brother-in-law, I don't know, Erica's sister, they live in Flag. And it was tough because basically the setup is I'm really going to try hard to hitchhike out of there. I'm going to work any angle I can to get a ride out with my bike. But if I can't, you're my plan B. So hopefully I don't need this favor, but if I do, can I have, it's so that a little tricky, but they were so selfless. I got in there in the evening, no one getting out at that time. I rode my bike over to Wire Pass Trailhead, which is like Buckskin Canyon. This is a very popular road. It's Buckskin Canyon, Paria, Slot Canyon. It's the Wave, which you need. It's like one of the most permitted sites in Arizona, state line, the end of the Arizona Trail. So you have a lot of recreators, a lot of tourists coming in there. So I thought there's a good chance I can get out and get a ride at least to Page, maybe to Flagstaff. And in the end, I arrived in the evening. It was kind of looking like rain. And that's where on my social media, I was like, anyone want to buy this bike? I kind of like Alexandra threw something out that was like, hey, bail my friend out, and I wasn't trying to push that because I really was looking for that hitch of someone that was already out there. But in the end, it was looking like a little rain. So I was like, maybe that'll work. No one showed up, totally fine. And then the next day I kind of tried to hitch a little bit, but no rides were coming. I actually made my way out to the highway, was trying to thumb. And then in the end, I was just like, hey, Nick, Katrina, can you guys come? And they were so nice. They just drove from Flag, 3-hour drive, super nice, and scooped me up. They brought me to Flagstaff, had dinner with John Schilling. John was coming back from Moab to Phoenix, so he's coming through. And we had invited him over, had dinner, and then he took me to Phoenix, stayed at Carl's. And then the guy, Brad, who bought my bike, he's an 850 finisher. So he actually was trying to pick me up at State Line and couldn't make it happen. But it was really nice. And I almost glad he didn't, because Tucson to State Line, 2 ways is like, man, that's a huge ask.
Yeah.
So he came to Phoenix, grabbed me. He bought the bike, which is super nice. Just to like get someone that was stoked on the bike, someone who could use it. And as an AZT finisher, bike dork, he was great. And we kind of like chatted, caught up. And then in Tucson, I borrowed a bike from him, rode longer than I wanted to Oro Valley, 20 some miles. And I ended up buying kind of a higher mile Sprinter van.
Oh.
So yeah, so that was the final leg of my journey. I bought this van. I've always traveled with a junk show in the back of a Honda Fit. Like Money Bikes is always 6 frames and 2 bikes in the back of a Fit with a rooftop tent and like toilet paper coming out the back. So I was just like, man, I've been ready for one of these. So I am selling a car and ended up buying this. It's like an '07, bought it for less than $10,000. It's a gas one, so it's not great on mileage, but not bad. But it was pretty clean, and it ended up to be a cyclist. And the guy was so nice, and I ended up spending the night at his house.
Wow.
And just like, I don't know, just highlighting more generosity on the whole journey. Like it just worked out really nicely. And yep, drove it back home. So now I'm a sprinter guy, I guess. I don't know. It's
Love
almost
it.
like too fancy, but yeah, it feels good to have like
I bet you'll
full
get used to
camper
it.
and
Yeah.
bike garage and that whole thing. So
You'll grow into it.
yeah. So
Well, dude,
anyway, that was the journey. You got it top to bottom there, dude. For sure.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. I got to I mean, we could talk all day long. I've got a kid I got to go pick up from school here pretty soon.
Cool.
So I think the last question I wanted to ask you comes from our friend Matt Mason, and I have no idea what this question means, and I'm hoping that you do. So he said, "What's the layer under the supai?" And then he says, Barbara knows, comma, mate. What is the layer under the supai? And I Googled supai, and there's a town in Arizona called Supai. So I don't know if he's talking about the layer of the crust of the earth.
I know what he's talking about. I know what he's talking
do?
about. I want to cheat so bad. I really want to just take my phone into my lap and figure this out. He's talking about layers of the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Matt Mason is an insane Grand Canyon head. I mean, I don't know how many trips. I don't want to overstate it, but like 50 trips in the Grand Canyon. River trips, hiking trips, biology trips. He's done invasive species removal. And so now with his daughters going back in the recreationally and then me this last time, he knows all the layers. So when you go into the Grand Canyon, obviously you're looking at every layer, and he can tell you, he's not like some super scientist, but he can tell you a lot about which layer and where it's like which is under the supai. Yeah, dude, this is embarrassing.
So he's testing you he actually invited me on that hike that y'all went on in March.
Totally.
But I wasn't able to go because that's East Texas Showdown month, and I was just completely strapped. But I was very pleased to get an invite, and equally sad that I wasn't able to go. But hopefully there's another invite out there. I'll be able to go on one. So who is Barbara, and what does she know? Oh, Barbara must have been. You don't know Barbara. Okay, I don't know. He says Barbara knows, mate. I was thinking she might have been someone out on the trail.
Barbara knows. God, Matt's too good. If I could just have a rebuttal, I would say,
please.
Get fucked.
Yeah. There you go.
I would say to Matt Mason.
Perfect. All right, Cjell. Yeah. Well, dude, congratulations on a successful attempt at the AZT on a coaster break and a new world record, man. And honestly, thank you for taking the time to chat with me so much. I can't imagine the workload that you had waiting for you when you got back into the office. So, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, man. It was an absolute pleasure to get to chat with you again.
Patrick, pleasure was all mine, and what an honor to be on the pod. Yeah. And thanks for running it. Thanks for doing it for cyclists and the community. It's a big benefit to everyone. So
it's a hell of a lot of fun, man. I appreciate it. I know everybody wanted 5 hours. We got about 3 hours here, but it sounds like at the Bikes podcast, there's a lot more coming. So that'll be awesome to follow along on that.
That's true.
Right on, buddy. Well, thanks again, man. We'll talk to you again sooner rather than later, I hope.
Okay. Thanks, Patrick.
All right. Later, dude.
Bye.
All right, friends. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. What a fun chat with Cjell. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here. It is always a pleasure. And until next week, you know what to do. Go ride your damn bike.
It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. In the morning, you packed your bike. Memories forgotten from the previous night. You rode faster than ever before. Was it your imagination or merely folklore? Fear turned into strength as you pushed further. Every pedal stroke, stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles.
bikes.